Hahn-Tech Premium Trading Tools, professional quality tools designed to sharpen your edges. Hi guys, welcome to the demo video for the Thinkorswim ATR Levels Premium Indicator. I'm really excited to release this indicator for Thinkorswim. I've had it available for the TradeStation platform for a couple of years now. It's been very popular, and I'm really excited because I've been able to add many new features to the Thinkorswim version, which eventually I will be porting over to the TradeStation version wherever it's feasible. And I just wanted to give you a brief overview here as we get started. And I wanted to let you know that this is a package, really more like a trading toolbox. It comes with a chart study, but it also comes with a chart strategy. As you can see here on my charts, you got a profit and loss graph down there on the bottom. This is for back testing. And it also includes two watch list columns. I'll show you here. I'll bring those in. I'll explain those later. And it also includes two scans. And also included with this will be the stops and target exits, which is a strategy that is specifically designed to handle exits based on a profit percent, or you could change that to dollar amount, and it plots the levels themselves so that you can manage your orders while you're watching the chart unfold. And I just wanted to give you a reminder that for Thinkorswim, chart strategies are not able to place live orders in the markets. They're only used for backtesting on Thinkorswim. However, towards the end of the video, I will be showing a simulated live demo using the on-demand feature so that you can see how you can manage your orders to mimic the way that the chart strategy is reporting the buys and sells on the chart. So this will enable you to use the chart strategy to optimize and fine-tune the parameters according to your own risk-reward tolerance and your preferences. And then after backtesting, practicing in a simulated live environment with the potential then to go to a live environment and place live trades manually as you're watching the levels unfold on the chart. So one handy thing about the stops and target exits, you can see them right here plotted on the chart. You've got the target down here, for instance, the cyan line right down here, that's a target. And the magenta line up over here, that's a stop loss. And you can adjust those through the settings. There's also an included trailing stop with that strategy that you may turn on or off. And it's really helpful for managing your risk reward and your win-loss ratio. In other words, making sure you get that blend of maximizing your profit based on your win ratio. Okay, it sounds really complex. It is. I've got a whole spreadsheet built on that. If you want to learn more, go ahead and watch the demo video for the stops and target exits. I'll show that later on in the video when we get to showing you where to buy this indicator. Okay, and let's go ahead and look at some of the TradeStation features. I wanted to just show you because this was the original and I've improved upon it. The TradeStation version has these levels here. Okay, the magenta colored lines are the ATR levels, and you got several other key technical levels here. You've got the previous day high and low, you've got the overnight high and low, then you've got the opening range here, the first hour open and close, and you can see here on this example how prices tend to react at these levels, which make for some really interesting trading opportunities. And it's up to you to determine what works best for you. And I believe that the tool that I've provided here with Thinkorswim gives you that additional edge of being able to understand where the profitable trades are likely to be found in the markets. I want to also explain how the ATR levels work. The ATR levels, as you see over here on the left chart, I'll go ahead and maximize that just so you can see. These ATR levels function as overbought, oversold levels, which automatically adapt as the volatility of the price action changes. In other words, as the market gets quieter, these levels tighten up and become closer together. As the market volatility expands and the price ranges increase, these levels spread apart and become more difficult to reach. So it automatically adapts to the changing volatility in the markets so that you have overbought, oversold levels that are not static or fixed in time and space. And you can see how they work here. You see this entry right here called Catch SE, that's a short entry. That's one of those ATR levels. It was oversold right here, oversold, extremely oversold, and that was an opportunity. And you can see them throughout the chart here if you just kind of start focusing in on these levels, okay? And then the other chart here shows an intraday version of this. So on the intraday, the behavior of the indicator changes slightly so that you then can focus in on your opening range breakouts. So yes, the indicator also includes opening range breakouts in addition to breakouts and fades based on the ATR levels. So there's a lot packed in here, and being this is the first version for Thinkorswim, I'm really excited for the future of this indicator as I get feedback from those who purchase it, and then we do additional upgrades in the future. And those who have purchased our divergence indicators over the years know that they automatically get the upgrades without any additional cost. So keep that in mind too. This is just the first version for Thinkorswim, and I've got great plans for this to continue building it out and improving it over time based on user feedback. And now I will take some time to cover the legal and moral obligations of any video containing material of this type, which is to clearly state that I am not a professional trader. I am not a certified financial advisor. Nothing in this video should be considered a recommendation or a solicitation to buy or sell any financial instrument. Trading involves risk, and that risk means that you may lose all or more than all of the money you have deposited in your broker's account. Along with that, I will also point out that with strategies, you have some additional declarations here, right here from Thinkorswim themselves. Okay, and I'll go ahead and blow that up a little bit so that you can see it clearly. The study parameters and data use historical market data and information gathered by TD Ameritrade. All output is for informational and educational use only, is not an investment recommendation or advice, and should not be relied upon in making the decision to buy or sell a security or pursue a particular investment strategy. Okay, it's very important. I know we have to cover those disclaimers and give you those warnings, and at the same time we're making available these tools and showing you how to use these tools to identify edges in the market and setups that you might want to trade in the future. So please be very disciplined in your approach to backtesting. You want to make sure you do it carefully. You want to make sure you do it thoroughly. You want to make sure that you test everything on a simulated account before you start trading on a live account. And when you do move from simulated trading to a live trading environment, you want to do so with limited size. Those are all just basic guidelines for being smart about applying your knowledge in the markets to your trading. And I'll cap that off by reminding you that these are tools, and tools are inanimate objects. They lie on the bench until they are picked up. And if they are picked up and put into the hands of a skilled technician, then they can do marvelous things. But if they are picked up and put into the hands of an untrained individual, they can cause great damage and harm. So take this seriously. Be intentional about your work and understand that you need to take the time to learn how to use the tool properly and effectively. I know you guys are eager to get started and see what these babies can do, but I also wanted to mention that this video does serve as the full and complete user manual for these indicators, and this is not really designed to be sales and marketing. I'm not trying to make a sales pitch here. My goal in this video is to show you how to adjust the various settings in the indicators to get the behavior that you are seeking to match with your existing strategies or come up with your own. But I do understand that many people will be viewing this video also to determine whether they want to purchase these indicators. So I'm going to take a little bit of time here. I'm going to show you where to locate them on our website, and I'm going to show you what's included in the indicator toolbox, and then we can get into the details. Let's go ahead and head on over to the Hahn-Tech website, where you will find these premium indicators listed under the title Premium Indicators, and then you just select your platform. In this particular case, it's Thinkorswim Premium Trading Tools. And when you do that, you will arrive at this web page right here. You can see a list of all of our indicators available here, and the one here at the top right is the one that is the subject of this particular video, ATR Levels, Support, Resistance, and Open Range Breakout. And you can view the demo video for any of these indicators directly from this page by clicking the links. You've got an Order Here button, which will take you to the order form. Prices are listed here, but keep in mind that these prices are subject to change, and in fact, January of each year I do issue a price increase, so it's very likely while you're viewing this particular demo video, these prices have been updated. And you can see a brief description of the indicator here, but more importantly, you've got some screenshots that you can thumb through, and you can just go ahead and use the navigation buttons to thumb through the 4 different screenshots available here. You can see the custom watch list columns and the overbought, oversold ranges that are indicative of this indicator. And then you also have the custom scan, in which we're able to apply two different signals together, two different time frames corresponding with the different custom watch list columns to help you further refine your scan results. And also I want to point out that one of the chart studies that are included with this indicator is listed right down here, and it's called Stops and Target Exits. It's one of 5 indicators that are available in this package. So if you want to understand a little bit more about the stops and target exit and how to adjust its parameters, then you want to go ahead and view the demo video for trailing stops and targets, in which we cover the stops and target exits as well as the other 4 chart strategies that are included in this trailing stops and targets package. So it's a separate package available for an additional fee, but for the ATR levels indicator, we are including one of the 5 chart strategies along with it. And when you are ready to place an order, you can just go ahead and scroll down to the bottom where there is the order form, and you can go ahead and review the instructions that are listed here. I will go ahead and point out the particular indicator that is subject to this video, and that is the ATR levels support resistance. I need to add the opening range breakout to that, don't I? And you will see applied discounts computed here. You can see that if you buy 2 or 3, you'll get a 10% off. If you buy between 4 and 5, you'll get 20% off the subtotal. And if you buy 6 or more, you'll get 25% off the total. Those are not additive. Those are simply exactly what you see there. If you buy 4 or 5, you get 20% off the subtotal. You don't get 20% off plus the 10%. You just get the 20% if you buy 4 or 5. And you can see those computed. If you, for instance, wanted to pick up the trailing stops and targets package to get the other trailing stop indicators that are included in that, then you could see that by picking 2, you get the discount of 10% off the subtotal. And the discounts are computed right here on the order form for you, so you can see exactly what your discounts will be as you make your selections. When you're ready to submit the order, you want to make sure to click this checkbox right here. This checkbox states that you agree to our privacy policy, terms and conditions. And when you check that box, the submit button appears. Until you check that box, you cannot submit the order. Okay, then I've got a list of questions for you guys to help you understand whether or not this indicator might be a good fit for you. But before we get into that list of questions, let's go ahead and review our topic list. And so we've completed the overview. We've just completed the where to find this indicator package on Hahn-Tech. Next is going to be the installation and setup. And you can see we're also going to be reviewing the settings. We're going to be reviewing them as an overview and also in detail. And I'll also be showing you how to adjust the settings that are corresponding on the watch list columns and the custom scan. In fact, when we do that section, we're just going to show you how to adjust the settings in the watch list columns, because once you learn how to adjust them there, you will automatically know how to adjust them in the scan, because their settings are exactly the same. Then we're going to have some example charts where I show how this indicator plots with various ticker symbols and various chart types and time frames and aggregation periods like tick charts and range bar charts. And I have some comments about those types of things in regards to back testing, so be sure to check that section of the video as well. And the very last section of the video, but certainly I think the most important, is our live demo, in which we use the on-demand feature to show you a simulated live environment of how to place your orders and manage your orders in a way that matches what the chart strategy is plotting on the chart. By all means, if you go through the time and effort to backtest and optimize your parameters, when you take this to a simulated live environment or a live environment, you want to make sure that you understand how to place your orders and how to manage your orders so that you're getting the same exact entries and exits as the chart strategy is showing on the charts. Now, I told you about some questions. These questions are rhetorical. They're here to guide you and help you understand whether or not this indicator is a good fit for you. And I do this for the benefit of those who are viewing this video, trying to decide whether or not they want to buy this indicator. And so the idea here, out of 5 questions, if you can answer yes to at least 3 of them, then this might be a good fit for you. If you can answer yes to all 5, then it's a sure thing. This is the right indicator for you. So let's go ahead and review these questions. You don't need to tell me the answers. I'm not interested in what your answers are. These are for you to ask yourself, to keep in mind while you're viewing the video, to understand whether or not this is a good fit. So number 1, Do I already use support resistance levels and or opening range breakouts in my trading methodology? If you do, then you're going to find tools in this indicator package that facilitate that and also help you to optimize and backtest. Does my current trading setup include criteria for overbought, oversold conditions? Maybe you're using the RSI or the stochastic for overbought, oversold. Well, those are static overbought, oversold levels. They don't automatically adapt as the volatility of the price action changes. Do I typically identify trend direction based on opening range breakouts? Again, this is just one small component of this indicator, but it is an important component, and I think it's going to be very useful for many people. And it also has a lot of features in it. There's a lot of flexibility in this so that you can customize it. Do I believe that back testing my setups will help me be a better trader? This is all about the chart strategy, right? These last two questions actually are about the fact that we've got a chart strategy now that plots theoretical buys and sells on the chart, gives you a profit and loss graph, also gives you a backtesting report, and enables you to go ahead then and research your own setups, refine and optimize your parameters so that you can find profit opportunities in the market. We've got plenty of resources on the Hahn-Tech website about chart strategies, showing you how to run the chart strategies, how to export the report to an Excel spreadsheet, how to analyze it on the Excel spreadsheet. So please be sure to visit our Hahn-Tech website and look at the strategy guide section of our free tutorials. So here's the last question right here. Am I willing to put in the time and effort to perform exhaustive backtesting and analyze the results to find optimum parameters for my setups? This is where I let you know that if you're going to do backtesting properly, it's boring. It is monotonous. It's tedious. It's like watching paint dry or grass grow. It's not fun. If you really enjoy looking at spreadsheets and building formulas and analyzing numbers and crunching data and trying different things and experimenting with different settings, then you probably would answer yes to this question, and then that would be a slam dunk for you, because that's exactly what this chart strategy is designed to enable. But if you do answer a strong no to number 5, don't be discouraged, because not only is it a chart strategy, it's also a chart indicator, and it also has your watch list columns and your scans, and so there's plenty here for everyone else if you're not really into thorough and exhaustive backtesting. So if you can answer 3 to any of those questions, I suggest that this indicator is probably a good fit for you. And one last quick little thing here. I'm going to review this in more detail later on in the video, but for those who are evaluating this indicator to determine whether or not they want to purchase it, here's a quick view of all of the features. Well, the main features. It's not all of the features, but these are the main features, and we're going to be covering all of these in detail later on in the video, but you can go ahead and screenshot this or pause the video, read through this list to kind of get a better idea of whether or not it's worth your time to watch the rest of the video to determine whether or not this is going to be a good fit for you. But for those who are watching this video to learn how to use it because you've already made a purchase, don't worry, we will be going through all of these in detail. And right now we will be moving on to the next section of the video, which is installation and setup. For the installation and setup, I'm going to be demonstrating this on a Windows machine because I understand most people that are using Thinkorswim are using it with Windows. And you can see on the right of my screen here, I've got an email with the ATR Levels package already in it. Now what you're going to be receiving is a zip folder. And some email clients are going to have trouble with zip folders, but we'll find ways around that. You may have to download it from a link that I provide, but either way, you're going to have to download it to your computer, whether it's a link or an actual file. So in this case, I'm going to click the download button, and I can't demonstrate this on every single email client that's out there, so you'll have to make some accommodation regarding your own email client, whether you're using Gmail or some other email client. But in this case, we're going to click the download folder. You're going to see the file appear in the left here. I've got this folder open. This is the downloads folder, so it's the default location for files you download from the internet on a Windows environment. And you can see here there's a compressed folder, right? There's a little zipper there if you zoom in on that. Now, you've got several different options here. I'm going to show you my way, and my way is that you double click on this folder, and it's going to open its contents for viewing. You see these top 3 files here? Let me go ahead and describe those. First one is a study file. The next 2 are strategy files. The rest are text files. And what happens with the study file and the strategy files, those are specific files meant to be imported into Thinkorswim. Because Thinkorswim fails to register those file types as a file types associated with Thinkorswim, your computer gets confused and thinks it's an MPEG-2 video. It's lying. It's just confused, okay? And just because Thinkorswim has never bothered to get around to registering their file types with the operating system. And that's just the way it is. So what I do here now is these are in a compressed folder, and we cannot import these from a compressed folder. So I'm going to remove these by copying them. So I'm going to right click and select copy after I select all the files. Now they're copied to the clipboard. Now I'm going to go back one level. So now I'm back in the downloads folder. Got it? Okay, now I'm going to right click and select paste. It's this little button right up here. And now what I've done is I've copied those compressed files out of that folder into the downloads folder in a form that it can be easily imported now into Thinkorswim. So now I'm going to show you how to import the study file and the two strategy files. There are some slight differences between each, and I'll walk you through those step by step. And then we're also going to show you how to load your scan files into the scan on Thinkorswim, and also show you how to import the watchlist files into your watchlist columns. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the chart study. I've got Thinkorswim open in the background, and so what I'll do is I'll just move that off to the side a little bit so that you can see the downloads folder in addition to what's happening on Thinkorswim. I'll just go ahead and load Apple on the chart so that we have access to the Edit Studies window. I'm going to open the Edit Studies window, and you can notice that there's three tabs up here: Studies, Strategies, and Sets. So the first file is a study, so we're going to leave it on Studies, and then we're going to select Import. Now we need to navigate to the Downloads folder. Notice it's defaulting to the Documents folder. So we're going to go up one level, and that is where you're going to locate your Downloads folder. The Downloads folder is located in the User Profile folder, okay? So then we're going to double click on Downloads. Let me move this off to the right here. And now you can see the HTA ATR Levels V1 study.ts. You see that? That's why I have these side by side, so you can see exactly how all these pieces fit together, okay? So then you go ahead and select Open, and that will import that study file into your computer. I'm not going to select Open because it will overwrite the one that I've already got loaded, but because you will be doing this for the first time, you can go ahead and click Open, and it will import it into Thinkorswim. Now I will show you how to locate that study file and add it to your chart. So you just start typing in the beginning of the indicator name. Okay, notice I've just typed in HTA ATR, and we'll go ahead and double click that, and it gets added to the list of studies on the chart. We can hit apply and OK, and then there it is. Now that's default settings, and the default settings are best suited for an intraday time frame, so it doesn't look very pretty on the chart right now. Keep in mind that the rest of the video will explain how to adjust the settings, and you'll know how to go from this ugly looking view to something that looks much cleaner and more organized. For now, let's go ahead and focus on importing the two strategy files. And I do want to take some time now to explain the nomenclature. HTA, all right, HT is Hahn-Tech, the A stands for analysis, so our chart studies are now prefixed with the HTA for analysis. Our chart strategies are prefixed with a B, HTB for backtesting. So the HTB is Hahn-Tech backtesting. There's two of those here. Remember I told you stops and targets exits was one of 5 from that package that is included. And then down here for the text files, you have an HTS. HTS, that stands for scan. Okay, and then the HTW, guess what that stands for? Watch list, right. So Hahn-Tech watch list. So you've got 2 scans, 2 watch lists, 1 study, and 2 strategies. Let's go ahead and import those strategies into Thinkorswim. And again, remember I told you that you would need to make some changes here. So we're going to move to the strategies tab. And when we move to the strategies tab, when we press import, then it will recognize the strategy files instead of the study file. So we'll go up one level because we need to get to the downloads folder, and there it is. I'll double click that, and now you can see these 2 strategies. See how they match up from left to right? So I just wanted to show you how those pieces fit together. Again, I think it's really important that users understand where their files are stored and how they get from email to computer to Thinkorswim. So all you do then is you select them. Now you can select one at a time and open them, or you can select multiples by press and hold shift on your keyboard and click, and you can select a range, or you can use control and select individual items. Those are just basic Windows keyboard shortcuts. If you don't know them, look them up. You need to learn how to use your computer. So we'll go ahead and click open, and that will import them into Thinkorswim. Once again, these are already loaded on my account, so I will not be pressing open because it will try to overwrite and I'll get a message pop up and I don't need to go through all that. So I'm going to hit cancel, but you will hit open. And now I'll show you how to locate those strategy files in your computer. Remember, it's HTB underscore, we want ATR levels, so we can double click that. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the chart study, HTA, ATR levels, because we don't need both of those on the chart at the same time. You can use either one, but if you want to do back testing, you definitely need the HTB version. Now let's see if we can find the stops and targets. Yes, there we go, HTB, stops and target exits. So we double click that, and now we've added both of those to the chart, and we hit apply and OK, and that is complete. So we've completed the import of the chart study and the strategy into Thinkorswim, and we've added them to our chart. Now I'm going to be showing you how to take the text from these files for the scan and load them onto a custom scan. Let me go ahead and do some prep work at a time. Okay, so I've got a brand new scan set up here, and if your screen doesn't look exactly like this, you can get there by simply pressing the reset button from the menu, and that will reset it to its default, which you see here. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set a top level filter for all optionable. I'm going to intersect with a category called all stocks, and I'm going to exclude a category called all over the counter stocks. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove these three items here. Those are stock filters we will not be using. I'm going to add two study filters to the scan, and I'm going to set one to daily. It's already set to daily, so I don't make any changes there. And I'm going to set the other one to 5 minute. And if you are totally lost because you've never done a custom scan on Thinkorswim before, don't worry, I've got a solution for you. We can go ahead and take you to the Hahn-Tech website, where you can locate a free tutorial that will show you every single thing you need to know about custom scans on Thinkorswim. So you go to free tutorials and Thinkorswim tutorials, click on scans, and then from the left-hand menu, select Thinkorswim scans, beginner to advanced, and then you can go ahead and view the entire video from start to finish if you've never done a scan before, because you're going to need to watch the entire video from start to finish. But if you've already played around with it and are pretty familiar with it but need some additional instruction, you can select from the list of topics here, go straight to one topic or another that you want to view, and that will really help you get up to speed. Now we go ahead and import the code. So one is going to be for daily time frame, the other is going to be for the intraday time frame. So let's go ahead and examine each of our files. You have this one here called HTS ATR Levels % version 1. And if we view the instructions, you will see that this says to set the time frame to the higher time frame you have applied to the companion chart study / strategy. Okay, so most people are going to be using the daily time frame, and that's why I've got this particular item set to daily. So all we do is right click and select all, right? So I right click anywhere in that file and I select all, and it's going to select all the text. And then I right click in any empty space and select copy. And then I can go over here to the study filter of the scan, click on the pencil icon for editing the code. And then what I can do is go over here to the ThinkScript editor. You can't do this from the condition wizard. I go to ThinkScript editor, and I'm going to go ahead and remove all the code that's already there because we can't use any of that that's already existing there. And I'm going to simply use Control V for paste. Okay, so we've copied all of that in there. Now I've omitted the code, the source code for this, to protect it because it is proprietary and this is a public video, so we won't be able to save this scan. But when you are doing this on your own computer, you'll have the full version of that custom scan, and you will be able then to click OK and accept the code that you've put there. I'm going to have to click cancel. And now I want to show you how to go ahead and do the other file, which is located here, and this is HTS ATR Levels Trend. Okay, now if we look at this one, it says set the time frame to whatever intraday time frame you have applied to your chart. For this video, we're going to pretty much stick with the 5-minute intraday time frame. So that's why I've set that study filter to 5-minute time frame, and I've included extended hours. I'm going to right click, select all, right click, copy, and then we'll go to the scan, click on the edit button for the study filter, and then go to the ThinkScript editor so that we can remove the code that's there, and then we can use the keyboard shortcut of Control V for paste, or we can right click and select paste. Doesn't matter, either one will work. And again, I've removed the source code here because this is a public video and it's proprietary, so I'm not going to be able to hit OK here, but this is the basic steps on how to set up your custom scan. And once you do so, then you'll be able to follow along with the rest of our video. Next, I'm going to do some brief setup work and get ready for showing you how to import the custom watch list columns. And now I'll go ahead and open up the sidebar here so that I can access my watch list gadgets. If you don't have any watch list gadgets here, you've got some gadgets on here somewhere. If you don't have anything on here, you can always press the plus button and that will enable you to add a gadget. But let's say you don't have any watch lists, you've got some other ones up here. You can just right click that menu and you can select switch gadget, and then from that you can go ahead and select watch list, and it will change it from whatever's there to a watch list. So you need to have at least a watch list gadget there. And what I like to do is I like to use my watch list gadgets outside of the left hand column because I like to keep that left hand column completely collapsed. So then what I do is I go to my watch list gadget and I click the hamburger menu and I select detach gadget. Okay, and then I go ahead and resize that to whatever it is that I need for the current need. So now I'll go ahead and I'm going to show you how to take that code, copy and paste it into your custom watch list columns. So I'm going to right click on any column right here. I'm going to select customize, and then I'm going to remove any columns that I don't want. And then if you want to go ahead and look up a column, what you can do is you can select a category, and that's the quickest way to get to your custom watch list columns. You click this down arrow right here, and then you select custom quotes. From your custom quotes, you will see custom 01 through custom 19. If you don't see custom 01 through custom 19, it means that you've already created some custom watch list columns of your own. As you can see here, I've renamed many of my own. I'm going to use custom 03 and custom 04, and then you go ahead and click that little script icon right there. Okay, that little script icon is what opens up the code editor, and that allows you to enter your own code. Now I've got some stuff in here from a previous video. This is going to be set to a daily time frame because this particular watch list column is going to be showing the percent. Now let's go ahead and grab our code from the correct file, which is this one right here, and you can see it listed right there, HTW ATR Levels %V1. And once again, just like the scan, if you look at the comments at the top, you will see that the time frame should be set to whatever higher time frame you're using on your companion chart study / strategy. And then the same process as with the scan. Let me move this down a little bit so we've got room to see. And we go ahead and select all, and then we right click and select copy, and then we go over here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click anywhere in this code editor here, and I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut called Control A, and it's going to select all of the code on that screen. And then I'm going to right click anywhere in an empty space and select paste. I could also use Control V on the keyboard for paste. Okay, so I'm going to paste all that code in there. And once again, I've removed the source code because this is proprietary and we're in a public video here. So I will not be able to hit apply and OK, but at this point you will have the full code if you purchase it, and you will be able to hit apply and OK and build that custom column. So I'm going to hit cancel right here, and I'm going to show you how to do the next one. Column 2 is going to be set to a 5-minute time frame, just like we did with the scan, and we're going to include extended hours. Okay, so disregard this code here. It looks like something I was working on for the Q&A forum. And so let's go ahead and grab our code from the file here for the watch list column. The second column is going to be HTW ATR Levels Trend V1. This corresponds with the 5-minute time frame that we just added to the custom scan in the background there. So we just right click anywhere in the empty space, select all, and then right click in an empty space and select copy. And then we come over here to the code editor. We can use Control A to select all of the code there, and then backspace to remove it all. Then we can right click anywhere in that empty space and select paste. So I've removed the source code because it's proprietary and this is a public video. So I will not be able to click apply and OK here, but you will. And I'll go ahead and press cancel. And then we press OK to save those changes. And then what I'm going to do is close this out and show you what it looks like when it's complete. I've got this watch list column that I set up beforehand so that you could see exactly how it looks. So this is the one that's set to the daily time frame and shows the percent values of the ATR. And the second column here to the right, this is the one that's set to the intraday time frame, and it's showing you the trend that's based on the opening range. All of that will make much more sense as we begin to review the settings and look at some charts. Okay, so we have completed the installation and setup review, and the next step in the video is going to be settings overview. So we're going to be reviewing the following page, which shows the list of files that are included, which you just saw on the installation and setup. And then we're going to be covering each of these individual topics here one by one. This is just a basic overview so that when we do get to the actual chart settings and I'm showing you how to adjust each of the parameters, you already have a good idea on what to expect. So we're going to go ahead and review this. I'm going to give you some brief descriptions here, and then once we get done with this document, then we're going to dig right into the charts and start adjusting the settings and showing you exactly what this baby can do. First up is the included files, and if you've already viewed the installation and setup section of the video, these should all look very familiar to you. But for those who skipped that section of the video, I'll go ahead and review these again briefly. There's a prefix for each file name, and I'll explain how to interpret that prefix. The HT stands for Hahn-Tech. That's pretty simple. The lowercase letter tells you the application. So lowercase a, stands for analysis. So this is a chart study indicator right here. And then the S stands for scan. So these two are your custom scans. And then the W stands for watch list column. So these two are your watch list columns. And then the B stands for backtest. So this is your backtest file. And this is the ATR levels backtest. It's identical to the chart study, except that the backtest version also contains the theoretical buys and sells, also known as the strategy orders. And this one right here is the one that we are including along with this indicator, which I explained previously is the stops and target exits. This is a companion chart strategy that we're including free of charge along with the package for the ATR levels. It's also included with the divergence indicators. And it is a chart strategy that handles your exits and plots your profit target and your stop loss levels on the chart each time a new entry signal is plotted by the chart strategy. This particular chart strategy is going to handle the entries, and this particular chart strategy is going to handle the exits. The two of them combined will consist of your back testing. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the main features for the chart study. It displays multiple levels of technical support and resistance. There are three sets of these support and resistance levels. We call them ATR levels. The indicator also includes three higher time frame moving averages. Each one can be adjusted independently of the others, and the higher time frame that is selected is the same one used for the ATR levels. It also plots the prior period high and low. So in the case of a daily time frame, it's going to give you the previous day high and low, and that's taken from the higher time frame, so it's not going to include extended hours. Then you have the overnight high and low. That's only going to plot on intraday time frames and only if you include extended hours data on your chart. Then we have the opening range. The opening range can be set a couple of different ways, and you can adjust the start time and the end time, and it's also only available in the intraday time frames. You also have the option to display the trend direction, and that's tied directly to the previous one, and it's only available in intraday time frames. And you have alerts that are built in. Alerts are triggered when price crosses each of the many ATR levels. Then we have the custom scans. There are two custom scans. One is going to scan for the ATR level percent, and that will make sense as we get into the settings and I explain each of the different levels. You also have a scan for the opening range trend. And again, once we get into the charts and start looking at the settings and how to adjust those settings, this will all make a lot more sense. But I want you to know ahead of time what's coming. So for the scan, ATR level percent, you've got some options here to find overbought and oversold stocks. And for the opening range trend scan, you have two different types of signals. You have a bullish bearish type of signal that you can run, or you have a trend bar count that you can run. Then we have custom watch list columns. The custom watch list columns tie in very closely with the custom scans. They're essentially the same base code, And what the watch list columns do is they display the information on a watch list column that the scans are designed to identify within your watch list. So for the custom watch list column that shows the ATR levels percent, it's also color coded so that you can see which stocks are at a maximum or extreme ATR multiplier levels. And the other custom watch list column is designed for running on the intraday time frame, and it will show you the opening range trend direction. It shows the consecutive bar count for the current trend stage, and it also changes color to reflect the trend direction. Then we have the chart strategy, and the chart strategy includes everything that is included in the chart study plus the following. It plots theoretical buys and sells, as I've mentioned previously. I like to call them strategy orders. And again, just a reminder that strategy orders are for back testing and optimizing your trade setups. Thinkorswim does not allow chart strategies to automatically place live trades. You have three different entry types for the strategy orders. You have one called catch, which is sort of like a fade. If you want to fade a support or resistance level, that's the catch. And then the break. The break is for breaking above or below a support level. So you've got one for fading and one for breakouts. And then for intraday only, you've got the opening range breakout. So you've got three different types of entry signals that you can activate on the chart strategy. For intraday timeframes, we have some options here. You can adjust the trading hours start and end time, and the start time and end time are used by the chart strategy to restrict new entries within that time period. In other words, anything outside of that start and end time span that you define with those settings, it will not allow any new entries. It also includes a setting that will exit the position for backtesting purposes before the end of the trading session or whatever time you adjust it to. It is designed to backtest a scenario in which you would not want to hold a position overnight. In other words, you would take a position on an intraday time frame during the day, during the regular session, and you want to make sure that that position is closed before the end of the day, and you want to backtest that against the alternative, which is you can turn it off completely and allow positions to be held overnight, and then you can backtest to see which one works out best for the particular settings that you've picked and the trading methodology that you have decided on. And you have trade size options here. You can select shares or equity, and when you select shares, it's just based on the basic quantity. Whatever value you enter for the trade shares is the value that's used for the positions. And then if you set it to equity, then you must manually enter your own account equity and percent of equity that you want to apply for each trade. And just a reminder that Thinkorswim does not provide any functionality that allows us to read your actual account equity. So you have to go ahead and enter that manually, and you'll see how to do that in the settings. Okay, and that's the brief overview of the main features. And so now let's go ahead and get into the charts. I've prepared a couple of chart layouts that will help you understand one of the most important and core components of this indicator, which is the overbought, oversold levels and how they dynamically adjust as the conditions in the market change from high volatility to low volatility. So let's go ahead and take a look at this chart. The chart on the left is set to a weekly time frame, and the only indicator I've added is the ATR indicator. Those are the default settings. Over here on the right, I've got a couple of indicators. The one on the top is actually the ATR levels indicator that is the subject of this particular video. I've heavily modified its settings so that it only plots the extreme ATR levels. On the bottom is a special indicator that I built for my own purposes that will show the overbought, oversold levels. And this is really intended to help you understand how the indicator is able to use the ATR values to automatically adjust the overbought, oversold levels based on the volatility of the price action. So you can see this period right here, how everything tightens up and gets really narrow, and you can see that in the price action, but you can also see that over here on the left where the ATR value is very low. As the ATR value increases, so does the distance between the extreme overbought, oversold levels. So if you look at this chart on the right and you look at that bottom indicator, those shaded areas are showing you the three different levels. Okay, there's three different levels of gray on the bottom, and the one in the middle is the mid-range ATR level, and the one just beyond that is the what we call maximum ATR. That's the maximum expected range, given the settings that you have applied. And the one on the outer edge of this is the extreme ATR. We call this the extreme ATR level because it is beyond what would be expected from a technical perspective as the maximum move you could expect in any given period. However, as you know, the markets don't need to respect these levels. So again, keep that in mind. These levels are there and they work many times, but sometimes the price action will rip right on through these levels. As you know plainly from using any indicators such as the RSI or the stochastic, in which they have overbought, oversold levels, and the market can continue on in an overbought or oversold level for a very long time, and especially when it gets running in a big trend. Okay, so now let's zoom into a couple sections of the chart here. I just want to zoom in a little bit on this section right here, and we can see that this is a period where the ATR values have been suppressed. Okay, market volatility has declined. We call this a very quiet market, and you can see the price action is very tight and very compact. And look what happens when it hits this upper range right here. See, it stayed away from that upper range, and then as soon as it hits that upper range here, there's a reaction, and you can see that the market then sells off. And then you can see there's a little bit of support here, a little bit of support here, and again you can see the price action reacting against these levels here as well. And so you can kind of think of this as a Bollinger Bands indicator, but this is one that automatically adapts as the volatility in the market changes. Let's go ahead and scroll through a little bit more of this chart here so you can see how these different levels are impacting the price. And again, this is the most extreme level, what I'm plotting on the chart. What you don't see plotted on the chart is the maximum level and the mid level. So now let me bring in another chart that I prepared. And this is the ATR levels indicator. And this is the one that is the chart strategy. And now let me help you understand these levels. Let me just go ahead and zero in on this little section of the chart right here. Okay. So now we're looking at a single period. This happens to be set to a weekly time frame for the higher time frame. And so each ATR level persists for an entire week. You see there's 5 days listed here. This is a 1 hour chart and there's 5 different days of trading. And you can see that at the mid-level ATR, prices reacted and pulled back. Okay. And then you can see over here when prices finally broke through that mid-level ATR, they got stalled out right here at the max ATR level. And prices did not manage to make it all the way up to the extreme ATR level. So how does that correspond with the charts that we just saw? This extreme ATR level up here, the solid gray squares, okay, that's exactly what we're showing here, okay? Those lines right there are the extreme ATR levels. So those are the levels that are most difficult for the price action to hit under normal circumstances. And I also want to point out this signal right here, this catch SE. This is the fade entry signal that I told you was included. So you can do a catch on both the short side and the long side. This happens to be a short side. And so what's happening here is the strategy is catching, okay, the max ATR level and fading it. So it's taking an opposing trade in the opposite direction of the previous price move. Okay, and then you can see how that works out over time. Let's open this chart up again so we can take a look at some of the other areas where prices are impacting these levels. And let's go ahead and take a look at this whole trade right here. Okay, we've got a catch right here at the end of this period that was late on a Friday afternoon. And so there was a catch short entry here, and it was held all the way through until it hit the profit target over here. Okay, and so you can see also what is this level right here. This is a mid-level ATR. Let me expand this out so you can see all the levels. Okay, so these dashed lines right here and here, those are the mid-level ATRs. Okay, and this white and gray dotted line at the top and the bottom, those are your max ATR levels. And the solid gray squares beyond that on top and bottom, those are your extreme ATR levels. Okay, very important that you understand this concept, because when we get into the settings, I'm going to show you how to adjust these, and you're going to want to understand how these levels are defined in the settings, and you can adjust them. The mid levels happen to be set at a 50% for default values and 100% for the max ATR, and the extreme ATR is set for 120%. So I just wanted you to take a look at this. I want to point out some things here. You see over here, prices reacting to the mid-level ATR. Okay, that's a 50% ATR. Then prices poke through and they surge up to and hit the maximum ATR, and then they just kind of roll over. And then over here, they hit the 50% ATR on the way down, and then they find support here, and then on the way back up, they find resistance at this 50% ATR level, and then they find resistance right here at the max ATR level, and then it comes back down again, and you see the 50% ATR level forms a level of support. You starting to get the picture? Starting to get the idea? So we'll go back here again and review this just real quickly so that you understand that the ATR levels are automatically adjusting. Okay, they get wider when the ATR levels are higher and there's higher market volatility, making those levels more difficult for the price action to reach. And during the quiet times in the market, the ATR levels drop and the ATR levels themselves squeeze together and tighten up, making it easier for the price action to hit those levels. Okay, so it automatically adjusts to the changing volatility in the market. Okay, great. I think that is a good foundation. If you guys didn't understand that or you still have questions, go back and review this section before continuing on with the rest of the video. It's really important that you understand this concept because everything is based on this fundamental component of how these ATR levels are functioning. We're going to come back to these charts later on when we get through the chart strategy settings and we get to the indicator settings. And I'm going to show you the impact of adjusting the ATR values and the multipliers. But for now, let's go ahead and move over to another chart that I've prepared so that we can review the settings that are specific to the chart strategy itself. And then we'll get into the settings for the indicator. And I almost forgot to show you this one very important detail. I wanted to explain to you which of these settings are dedicated to the chart strategy and which ones are common to the chart strategy as well as the chart study. So you can see the ones that I've marked here in the white rectangle. Those are the ones that are dedicated solely to the chart strategy. And let me go ahead and scroll down a little bit. And so you see the higher time frame setting. That's the first setting in the list that applies to both the chart strategy as well as the chart study. And those go all the way down to this one here called the opening range type. Okay, those are all common to both the chart strategy and the chart study, as well as the custom watch list columns and the scans. Then when we get to display trend legend, let me go ahead and scroll down. Okay, I'll put display trend legend at the top. So now from here down are the settings which are not included in the custom watch list columns or the scan, because these are the settings that control the aesthetics of the chart study. And so they aren't required for the custom watch list columns or the scans. And on this chart, we can see there are 3 entries, 3 exits. Each one is at 100 shares. So let's go ahead and look at the very first setting for the chart strategy, which is trade size type. The default value is shares. The default value is 100. And so if we change that to 50, we'll see that these orders that you see, the minus 100, are going to change to 50. And I can move this out of the way so you can see that one too. All right, so all 3 of those now are showing 50 shares instead of 100. And it's because of this value right here. Now, if you go ahead and change that value from shares to equity, the trade shares is completely ignored, and instead the code is going to use the account equity and the percent of equity. So what you have here is a $10,000 account equity by default, and 10% of that equity is used for trades, and so that gives us $1,000. What the chart strategy is going to attempt to do is back test as many shares as possible within that $1,000 limit. So let's go ahead now that we've turned that on, and what we'll see is the values will adjust so that you have 6 shares here, you have 7 shares here, and you have 6 here. Why are those different values? Well, because at a price of 176-ish, the strategy is only able to fill 6 shares before it runs out of money, so to speak. Down here, you've got 7 shares. Well, at this valuation, you can do the math yourself. You've got 7 shares that fit within that $1,000 limit. And you can see that as the price goes up, it's going to buy less shares or sell less shares. In this case, it's a short entry. And if it goes lower in price, then it's going to larger number of shares. Go ahead and set that back to default so that it's 100 shares. And then next we're going to be looking at trade direction. Okay, right now it's set to short. So what we can do now is set it to long. Okay, so you've got three choices here, long, short, or both. So we'll go ahead and set that to long. We'll hit OK. Now we need to make sure that your entries and exits match in the same direction. So there's a setting here for the stops and target exits, which is plotting your stop loss level and your target level. That also needs to be updated to long. Okay, trade direction long. And again, we're not going to be reviewing these settings in detail for the stops and target exits. You can view the demo video available on the Hahn-Tech website, which I've shown you previously in this video how to access. Again, we're going to make sure that both of these are set in the same direction, and then we'll go ahead and review what's on the chart. And you can see here there is a break long entry, so we've got a different signal here. You see that break long entry? Let me zoom into that section of the chart there. It's kind of difficult to see. It's a dark green, and you see it's a break long entry. So what it's done here is it's plotted a long entry signal when it breaks above that positive 50% ATR. And then it automatically plots the target and the stop. And this particular trade resulted in a loss. It hit the stop level before it hit the target level. We can zero in on this one over here, and we can see there's another break long entry. Again, it's breaking above that previous resistance level. You can see how prices were rejected here at this point, and then prices rose above and broke through that 50% ATR level, and they rose quite a bit there, but they didn't give enough to hit the profit target, and they ended up hitting the stop loss. So this is part of back testing. When you look at these over a long period of time and you look at many stocks, you get a feel for how much profit you can squeeze out of each of these opportunities and make your adjustments, optimize your parameters to fit your needs, and then start testing it in a simulated live environment. Let's go ahead and expand that chart so we can see all of the signals, and then we'll update that to show the other entry signal. So here we go. We've got the trade direction is set to long. The long entry type is set to break. That's why we saw that change. When we changed it from short to long, we were changing it from catch to break. Well, let's see for our long entry types if we wanted to change that to catch. Okay, and notice that for the long entry type, there's three options here. The OR is the opening range, and that's only functional on an intraday chart. So we're going to change that to catch, hit OK and apply, and then take a look at some of these trades that it plots on the chart. So once again, you've got a catch right here. So you see price falling into the max ATR. It actually dipped down to the extreme ATR level. It bounced pretty strongly there and almost hit the target. So again, this is part of back testing. You want to look at a number of stocks over a period of time and understand for your particular trading style and the particular market that you're trading, what is available there for profit, and then adjust your stop loss so that you are risking as little as possible. Let's take a look at another one over here. You can see the catch. It catches right here at the max ATR. That's actually what we call a minus 100 ATR. That's another name for it. Actually goes down and through the extreme ATR. It's a very rare occasion, but you do see that it eventually does bounce, but it doesn't have enough steam. It actually gets above the 50% ATR and finds support right here. And it can't quite get to the max ATR, okay, for the following period. And then eventually prices get rejected and falls down and hits the stop loss. And maybe somebody wants to see the short side for the break trade. So let's go ahead and change that to short and change the short entry type to break. Okay, notice that trade direction is set to short. And when you do that, the long entry type is no longer used. You have to adjust the short entry type. When you change the direction, you need to make sure you're adjusting the correct setting here. So we've changed it to short and changed it to short entry type of break. And we're going to hit OK. And don't forget, we have to update the stops and target exits so that it is also in a short position. And then let's go ahead and hit apply and OK. And you can see we've only got one trade on that. Let's go over here. And so here's the break. So prices are trading. Look at this. Up here, it hit the max ATR. Prices rejected. And then it came down here, barely found support at the 50% ATR, and then followed through on the downside. And it still has yet to hit the profit target yet. So this is still an open trade for this particular chart strategy. And now I want to take you to the other chart that I have prepared for this demonstration. And this is the one that is set to use the opening range breakouts. And it's set to a 5-minute chart. And the higher time frame is set to daily. And you can see on the chart here, it might be a little confusing. And I apologize if it is, but I'll explain it. It's actually trading both directions, long and short. And we've got the stops and target exits added to the chart twice. Once for the short side and once for the long side. And the way you can tell those apart is one is set to red and green and the other is set to magenta and cyan. Let's go ahead and look at those settings. So there you have it. You've got the stops and target exits. One is set to long, one is set to short. And then you've got the ATR levels indicator. So let's go ahead and look at those settings. We have the trade direction set to both. Remember I told you that there were 3 options here. Okay. And for the long entry type, there are also 3 options. And so when I set it to both, and I set the long entry type and the short entry type to opening range, then we get the trades established based upon the opening range. And remember earlier in the video, I explained that some of these settings are common to both the chart strategy and the chart study. And one of those is the controls for the opening range, which is located right here. So we're going to cover this here in this portion of the video, but we're also going to cover it again when we get to the other section of the video that covers just the chart study settings. Okay, so you have 2 options for the opening range type. The original is the open and close, which is the open of the first hour, so the opening price of the regular session, and the close of the first hour. Now those times can be adjusted, and I'll show you where to adjust those. But first I wanted to explain this setting. And you have the other option here, which is the high and the low. This would allow you to adjust the opening range to a more traditional high and low of the opening range period, rather than the open of the regular session and the close of the first hour. So now let's go ahead and show you where those time settings are. Right here, session start time. So that is going to be used for the session open if you have it set to opening range type open and close. And then the first hour close time, default to 10:30. And again, those 2 times are going to be used to determine the opening range regardless of whether you have it set to open or close or high and low. So if you have it set to open and close right now with the default values, it's going to give you the open at 9:30 and the close at 10:30. If you change this to high and low, then it's going to give you the highest high and the lowest low between these 2 periods. And you can adjust those times according to your preferences. So I'll demonstrate those settings while we're here. But first, let's go ahead and cancel those changes and review some of these signals that are on the chart. Okay, I'll go ahead and zoom into this section right here. And you can see that we have an opening range. This is the first hour open. And you can see that this is the first hour close. And that forms the range. And so what you see here are bullish bars above the opening range and bearish bars below the opening range. And you can see that the strategy is able then to mark a long entry here at the break above the opening range. And then it is able to plot a short entry here as the prices cross below the opening range. Now you can see that there was a potential for profit here, but the profit target is set a little bit too far away. For this particular type of setup, you would need to adjust this, and you'll need to experiment on your own depending on what instrument you're trading, and do your back test and optimizations to determine how much profit is available for each of these types of setups. But if you just take a look at this price action here, look, it's just choppy and flat. It went nowhere all day long. It basically closed almost at the same point it opened, and so any amount of profit whatsoever in this type of trading environment is pretty darn good. So be sure to set your expectations at a reasonable level. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn off one of these directions. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the short side by selecting long. So trade direction is set to long. Long entry type is set to opening range. I'm going to leave the session start time and first hour close time to the same values as the default, and I'm going to leave this opening range type set to open and close. I'm going to do this gradually so that you don't get lost here. Okay, apply and okay. So you can see we've eliminated the short entry, and so we're trading only in the long direction. I wanted to kind of clean that up a little bit to make things a little bit more clear. And you can scrunch up the chart a little bit here, and you can see that the profit target is way beyond any reasonable range for this type of trading day. You would really have to have a strong trending market in order to reach that profit target. But it is within range, because if you look up here, you can see the Max ATR and the Extreme ATR are still above that target. So if you were going to try to catch those runners and try to catch those breaks that run all the way up to the maximum level, then that profit target is probably reasonable. But you have to do the testing and research on your own and optimize things as you see fit. So now let's go ahead and make some changes to the settings. I'm going to move this over a little bit so that we can get a clear view of this opening range. And I want you to take note of these levels right here. When we change it from open/close to high/close, the top of the range is going to be right here at the high of this bar and right here at the low of this bar. Let's go ahead and make those changes so you can see how those settings will impact those levels. So we'll go down here to opening range type, and I'm going to change that to high-low, and then I'm going to hit apply. Okay, so did you all see that change? Just like I said, that line right there now marks the high of the opening range, and this line marks the low of the opening range, and they even change color and sort of change how they plot, which will help give you a clue when you adjust that setting how to tell which setting has been applied without even looking at the settings. Once you get used to it, it'll just be a no-brainer. You'll look at that and you'll go, oh, it's set to high and low, or it's set to open and close. So let's go ahead and adjust that back, and I'll help you see that clearly. Right? So opening range type, it's set to high-low. Now we're going to change it to open-close and see how it reverts right back to the way it was before. Okay? So you see that difference? That's how you tell which is being applied without even looking at the settings. So let's go ahead and adjust the time so that you can see how that works. Let's go ahead and leave it as open and close, and let's change the start time. Let's say you wanted to trade and you were trading a futures instrument that opened at 8:30, and I've got my chart set to Eastern time zone, and we'll just change that one setting right there and then look at how it impacts the chart. There you go. I'll move this over to the side so you can see right there it's marking the open of the 8:30 bar as the opening range. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and adjust the other setting so that you can see how the end point is computed. So there you go. The first hour close time now, it's set to 10:30 right now, so let's set it to 9:30. Okay, and this is a scenario where you might say, okay, well, it's a futures contract, and the pit open is at 8:30, and I'll use the first hour of that session. And so let's go ahead and hit apply and see how that changes things. Okay, and you can also see how the trend bars are also updating. Above and below the opening range, you have the colors indicating the direction of the trend, or the bias, as one might say. And anything that's trading within the opening range is set to gray, because that is neutral, no bias whatsoever. And now that I've adjusted those times, we still have the times set to 8:30 and 9:30. Let's go ahead and adjust the open close to high low. So that's the opening range type now. I'm changing it to high and low. So what do you suppose is going to happen when I hit OK on this one? I'll give you a second here to kind of ponder that and look at the chart and try to anticipate how those lines are going to show up on the chart. Okay, so now get ready. Hit apply. There you go. Did you guess right? Were you able to understand exactly where those levels were going to be? If so, good for you. You followed along and you get it. If you're still confused, then just replay that part of the video. Make sure you get it. And then after you purchase these indicators and get everything installed on your system, then you can play around with this setting and learn on your own how it works. Okay. And now I've reset the chart so that you can see how it looks when you have everything set up, with it being able to trade both the long and the short side of each trade. And I want to go ahead and show you how to adjust those settings on the stops and target exits, just because I want to make sure you understand how to tell these apart. And someone might be asking, well, this is a short entry. Why do you have the long entry stops and target plotted on the chart? Well, that's because within the code on Thinkorswim, there's no way that we have to tell whether the strategy is in a long or short position. We simply have one value, which is the entry price. And so we can only key in on that. So the only thing we have to work with is the fact that we're in a position. So we have to assume that it's either long or short and leave it up to the end user to apply the correct method. And so what we have here is the stops and target exits applied twice to the chart. One side is long, one side is short. And then how do you tell the difference? Let's look at the long side. The long side, if you scroll down and look at the plots, and you can see the target price is set to cyan and the stop price is set to magenta. So you look at the right side of the chart over here, you can see the magenta and the cyan, and those are for the long entry. And given that this particular trade is a short entry, none of those are active, right? So the cyan and magenta line are there, neutral, doing nothing, not impacting the trade whatsoever. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the other one that is set to the short side and look at the colors that have been assigned there. So you can see the target price is green and the stop price is red. So here you can see that the green is the target for the short entry and the red is the stop loss for the short entry. And so the red and green are the only two that would be active for this period and this trade in the short direction. Also notice that there is a timeout SX. That's another setting that we're going to be getting into shortly. Stay tuned for that. I just wanted to help you understand how to read this and adjust the colors on these while you are applying both the long side and the short side together on the same chart. I encourage you to work with one side or the other to begin with. Start working with the long side or the short side, whichever one you're more comfortable with, leaving the other side off the chart, and just get used to working with it that way. And then gradually over time, you can add the other and have both of them working together at the same time. The other thing you might try to do is set up two charts side by side. Set one to the long side and the other to the short side, and then you can go ahead and compare those and learn about them over time. And then gradually, as you learn and understand how all these pieces fit together, combine them on the same chart. I'm giving you a word of caution because this can be very confusing, especially when you start following the chart on a live environment or a simulated live environment and start trying to place trades and adjust your profit target and stop loss. So there's other techniques that you can apply. For instance, you can change the style of the plot itself, right? So we can change that to triangles, and let's change this one to triangles. Hit OK and apply. Let's go ahead and move that chart around a little bit so you can see the little sawtooth edges on the top of the red line and little sawtooth edges on the top of the green line. That's another method that you can apply for the style in order to be able to more clearly see those. And if you zoom out a little bit on the chart, you can see that those two lines are actually made up of individual shapes as well as a line that goes through them. So there's lots of different options that you can choose from to differentiate them, and I just encourage you to go ahead and start with one side or the other before you start trying to blend them together on the same chart. Okay, before we move on to the next setting, I want to make sure that you guys get some coverage on this so you see the impact of these settings. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the opening range type to high-low and let you compare how that works out on the chart. Okay, so in this particular case, for this span of time and for this ticker symbol, when you change it from opening range of open and close and you change it to high and low, you get a drastically different result on your P&L curve. So it's very important that you understand how these settings impact the P&L curve, because in your back testing, that's the goal, is to find out which one is going to work best for your particular market, for your particular style of trading. You got to consider your risk tolerance. I know I'm spending an awful lot of time explaining this, but it's very important that you not get discouraged, that you understand that you have a lot of flexibility in this tool, and it's up to you to determine what works best for you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and reset this chart, and then we'll move on to the next setting. And this is the chart I selected for the next setting to help demonstrate the trading hours inputs. The default is no. Now, as I said earlier in the overview, the trading hours start and end time determine when new entries are allowed. It does not control the exits. The exits can still be triggered at any point in time after or outside of those trading hours. And I think that if we zoom in on this signal in particular, that we'll be able to learn how this setting works very well. So let's go ahead and adjust the chart here so we've got a clear view of this trade. You can see that there's an entry signal right here at 9:45, and then there's a timeout exit over here at 15:45. So let's go ahead and dig into these settings now. Let me go ahead and turn that on. So intraday trading start is set for 10 a.m. This trade, as I already indicated, was at 9:45. So we would expect that this particular entry signal that you see here would be taken off of the screen because it does not fall within the allowed trading hours. All we've done is change the apply trading hours from no to yes. And when we hit apply, we should see it applied to the chart. And there we go. So what happens then is this signal is not included because it's outside of the trading hours. The trading hours would start at 10 a.m. because of the settings we've applied. And so it waits until the first opportunity, which is right here. And that is the first opportunity within the allowed trading hours for this strategy, the way it's set up now. And now let me go ahead and reset the chart and search for a pattern that will help us understand how the other part of that trading hours works, which is the trading hours end. Let's move this off to the side here. Take note of where this entry is located. It's at the 1345 mark on the chart. And so what we'll do is we'll edit the settings. And you can see the intraday trading end is set to 1500 hours. So this one right here at 1345 is within that time period, so it is allowed. So what happens if we adjust this to 1300 hours? So now with this setting, we would apply the trading hours, yes, and the trade entry must occur between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. on the chart. So let's go ahead and hit apply and watch how that changes the signal that we're looking at right now. There we go. That signal comes completely off the chart because there are no current signals between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. on this particular section of the chart. I'm going to set this back to the default value of no, and this one is going to be the default value of 1500. So the trading hours are not going to be applied here, but the next setting that we're going to examine is the intraday flat time, which is set to 1545. So let's go ahead and hit apply and see that on the chart. Okay, good. Let me go ahead and reset the chart, and I want to move back over here to this particular trade so that we can show you clearly how this timeout LX is functioning. It's being generated by the chart strategy based on a specific time. And you can see that this particular candle on a 15-minute chart is the 1545 stamp. Okay, so what you do then is you look at these settings and we can adjust those and see how it works. So we come over here and we locate that setting, intraday flat time. And let's say we wanted to move that one bar, so we changed this to 1530, and it should move the timeout LX one bar to the left when we hit apply. And it does. So you can see how that's worked. Let's go ahead and move that back again a little bit more. I'll set that to 1515. And when I hit apply, watch the timeout LX. There you go. So the timeout LX moves one more bar to the left. And then you can see that we've got a new entry that is taken out immediately because it's got an entry on the same exact bar as the timeout. So let's go ahead and take a look at the other chart strategy, stops and target exits. This one also has a intraday flat time setting, all right? And it is set to 1545, just like the other as a default. So we turn this off by making that value 0. So when we set the intraday flat time to 0, it has the effect of turning it off. So let's go ahead and hit apply. And what we see is that it's still being triggered by the ATR levels setting. So let's go back into these settings right here. And let's go ahead and set this one to 0. And you'll see the impact. There you go. So what happens then is the chart strategy is not automatically posting an exit right there at the last bar of the chart. It's holding the position overnight, so to speak. And so this is the setting that allows you to do your back testing under two different scenarios. In one scenario, you close out the trade before the end of the regular session. And you do that and you back test. That's the way you trade. Okay. And then the other scenario you can back test is, well, I can't do day trades, so I have to hold overnight. I don't have a choice. So you turn this setting off so that the timeout LX is no longer posted, and the strategy will be forced to use some other form of exit, which we can examine here by expanding the chart. There we go. And I'll open that up a little bit. So that's the trade again. And instead of exiting right here, now it's getting stopped out right here. And you can see that this dashed line right here is midnight. And so the trade in this case is being held overnight. And so you've got two different scenarios which you can backtest. Again, I'll repeat myself just in case you missed it, but this setting allows you to backtest for holding positions overnight or closing positions before the market closes. Let's go ahead and set that back to the default value, 1545. And now we are getting to the point where we have the chart study and chart strategy settings. In other words, these are the settings which are common to both the chart study and the chart strategy, also on the watch list columns, as well as the scan. Let's go ahead and review the first setting. I'm going to stick with these charts for now so that I can demonstrate from this foundation how these settings are going to affect the behavior of the chart study. So we have the higher time frame. Right now it's set to weekly. You can change it to daily or any of the other available time frames that you see listed here. Now, secondary aggregation periods are only supported on time-based aggregation charts. If you set this to tick charts or range bar charts, I do not believe that Thinkorswim will allow that higher time frame to work. So you want to keep that in mind. So if you wanted to change it, for instance, to a daily time frame, okay, it really wouldn't make any sense because we're working on a chart that's already set to daily. But I just wanted to show you how that would impact the behavior of the study. So I'll go ahead and click Apply and OK. And I've also updated that on the lower study as well, so you can kind of get an idea. And then what we would need to do to demonstrate this fully is to change the left-hand chart to daily time frame. And now as I move my mouse cursor across the screen, you can see how those levels are adjusting as the ATR value increases and decreases. You see how over here the ATR values on the left are very low, and over here the ATR values on the left are very high. And so you can see how it's automatically adjusting, and you can see how the impact of that setting changes how those levels are printed on the chart. And for a daily time frame, you would want to use an intraday time frame on the chart. So if you're using a higher time frame of daily, then you want to set your chart to an intraday time frame, something in the range of 5 or 10, 15 minutes, maybe all the way up to a 1-hour chart. And that would be the way it's designed to work. Basically, what you want to do is have at least a couple dozen bars per time frame. Now, if we zoom into this chart, you can see each step in this line is 1 day. Okay, that's 1 day. And so you only have on a 1-hour chart maybe 5 or 6 candles. So for a daily time frame, you probably want to go down to something like a 30-minute time frame, or maybe even better, a 15-minute time frame. And I've expanded that out to include 15 days of 15-minute bars. So you can see if we zoom in on one of these days, okay, you can see that that level stays flat for the entire period there. So that is one entire day. And you can see you've got probably a couple dozen candles there. You want to have sufficient number of candles within your period in order to have these signals be able to trigger at a time that's advantageous. You don't want to use a time frame that's too low because then you wind up with a lot of noise. Watch, we'll change this to a 1-minute time frame. This is one of my pet peeves. So many people are using 1-minute time frames, and I believe that it's not good for them. There's nothing good at a 1-minute time frame. It's all noise. And so you can see as we scroll through the chart here that the signals that you're getting based on these levels are really a lot of noise. You see how many times they crisscross these levels over and over and over again. So I don't believe that a 1-minute time frame is good for anybody for any purposes, but that's my own opinion on the matter. I'll leave that for you to decide on your own. And after all, this is a chart strategy which allows you to backtest. So I will give you my recommendation and leave it up to you to perform your own testing. I'm going to set this back to weekly, and then I'll set the other chart back to weekly. I'll add a little bit more time on the chart here. And what I want to do next is demonstrate the next setting, which is the ATR length. So over here on the left, I'm going to adjust this value, and let's make it a wider number, 21. So it will respond more slowly to changes in volatility. And there's a very, very subtle difference in that. And then we can make that same adjustment over here. I decided that a daily chart is a little bit better for this, and I'm going to make sure we've got at least 2 years so we can match the weekly chart on the left a little bit more closely. Now I want to go ahead and adjust these values here so you can see the impact of that ATR length. I'm going to change it here, which is on our indicator, but I'm also going to change it on the lower study that I'm using to demonstrate these settings. And there you go. You can see how everything kind of got smoothed out a little bit. Okay, it responds a little bit more slowly. Now what happens if we change that ATR value down to a level less than 14? Let's say we change it to 5. That's going to respond more quickly, and you can see that it introduces a lot of noise. Okay, so you can see the effect on that on the left-hand chart. Now let's go ahead and update the right-hand chart. And that's the result. So you can see how those settings for the ATR itself will impact the way these levels respond to the changing volatility of the market. And now let me show you how to make those same adjustments for our watch list columns. I'll bring our watch list columns into view. If you remember from the installation and setup, the column on the left is set to a daily time frame, so this is your higher time frame. The column on the right is set to an intraday time frame. And so when we're talking about making adjustments to the ATR length, we're only going to find that setting in the first column, not the second one, because we're dealing with the higher time frame. So let's take a look at our charts. Our last example was a daily time frame for the chart and a weekly higher time frame, as you can see on the left. So the first thing we would do is edit the formula for column 1, change the time frame to weekly. That's step 1. So now it matches. The higher time frame is set to weekly, and column 1 is set to weekly time frame. Then we have the settings available right here. These are the only settings that are available on this particular watch list column, so it's really simple. And if we wanted to change the ATR length from 14 down to 5 or to 21, as we showed in the previous example, then you go ahead and make that adjustment right there. And then you hit apply and OK, and then these percentages, these values, will go ahead and update accordingly. Let's go ahead and take a look at this particular one right here, Apple, and you can see the value here is at 88.16%. And that's what we've got on the chart. Let me go ahead and pin that watch list gadget so it doesn't fade behind our charts when I click on the chart. And then let's go ahead and take a look at that value right there, right? It's red, so we know that that is what? Red is overbought. Green is going to be for oversold, right? Because if it's overbought, we expect that to be reaching its limits and be potentially ripe for a short. If it's oversold, then we believe to be at its lower bounds and ripe for a potential reversal to the upside. That's why those are colored in that fashion, right? So let's go ahead and zoom in on this section of the chart right here. And so what this is saying right here is that this candle, the value right here, 149.70, is at 88.16% of the ATR. Now for reference point, this line is the 120, okay? The 120. Let me go ahead and update this chart to add the other line to it. Okay, and I have set that to the default value of the white and gray dots so that you can tell the difference between the max level. This is the max ATR level, and this is the extreme ATR level. So this level right here is at 100% ATR. This level down here is at minus 100% ATR. Okay, and the extreme levels are at the 120% and the minus 120%. So you can see here that the watch list giving you a value of 88.16 tells you it's approaching this level, the maximum ATR. Now, what if we change the chart to SPX? I'm just looking at the watch list over here, and you can see that this one, SPX, is 111%. So we would expect it to be above the max, but below the extreme. Let's go ahead and update the chart. And you can see our alerts are being triggered here. And sure enough, just as I explained to you, the column is showing 111.32%. And you can see right there, it is approaching the extreme ATR. It is above the max ATR and approaching the extreme ATR. Let's take a look at another example so you can get the idea here. I don't see any that are really oversold. That's a problem, because I would really like to be able to show you an oversold example. But we have Disney here that is green, so we know that that is below the close and near a support level. You see the 56%, so that's going to be pretty close to the 50% ATR, which I might want to add to the chart here for this next example. Let me go ahead and load the chart for Disney and then show you where we're at. Okay, so you get your reference point here. Okay, you got the 100% and the 120%, and then down here you've got the minus 100% and the minus 120%. What's missing is the plus 50% and the minus 50%. Let me update the charts again and show you how that looks on the chart, so you can kind of draw the connection between what you see on the watch list and what you see on the chart. It's really important, so I hope that you are paying attention. Okay, so now I have added the 50% ATR levels. This is the plus 50% up here, and this is the minus 50% down here. And you can see that the current price is just below that minus 50% level. And what does our column tell us? Our column tells us exactly that. It is minus 56.48%, just below the 50% ATR level. And I think those examples should be sufficient to help you understand how the custom watch list column is going to give you clues about what's on the chart. And also, don't forget, I just showed you how to adjust the settings. So let me go ahead and adjust those back to default values, which is 14. And we will get around to adjusting the ATR multipliers. Okay, that's coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. So that's updated. Let me go ahead and move that off to the side and reset this chart. Okay, for the next few settings, we're going to be looking at the ATR multipliers themselves. So I've changed charts, and I want you to see how these levels can be impacted by those settings. I'm going to zoom in to a section of the chart that I think is nice and clean. This right here, we got 3 different periods. And I want to go ahead and remind everyone, the top level here is the plus 120. This level, which is the alternating gray and white dots, that is the max level, that is the 100%. Then you have the 50%, okay, so those are all plus numbers. So you got plus 50%, plus 100%, plus 120. Then down below, you've got the minus 50%, minus 100%, and minus 120%. And let me go ahead and put some lines on the chart here, because we're going to update the settings, and I want to remind you of where these levels started, so that when we make the changes, you will see how they impact where those levels move on the chart. There we go, just some basic price levels. Let's go ahead and update the settings, and we'll see what we have. Now, for just fun, I'm not saying that this is a secret method or anything like that. It's just for fun. I would say let's try some Fibonacci levels in here. For instance, we can change the mid ATR from 50% to 61.8. And then we can change the max ATR from 100, we can change it to 78.6. And then for the extreme ATR, we can make it 123.6. Just for fun. Not saying there's anything special about this, just because people like Fibonacci levels and someone might want to backtest this. And now you look at the chart and see where I've drawn those lines and watch how the levels change when I hit apply. And refresh the charts. There we go. Now I'll hit OK. So remember, the price level here was set to the extreme, and now the extreme has moved just above it just a little bit. And then remember that the max ATR was at the plus 100. Now it's down here, you see, because we changed it to 78.6. We reduced the value from 100 down to 78.6, and it dropped lower. And then likewise for the mid level, it used to be a 50%. So right here is the 50% level for the ATR. We upgraded it to a 61.8, and that increased the level just slightly. And likewise on the opposite end. Down here, we have the 61.8, right? Moved from minus 50% to minus 61.8. And then the max ATR has moved up from the minus 100% to a minus 78.6%. And then the extreme ATR has moved down from a 120% ATR down to a 123.6% ATR. Now let me show you how those settings are adjusted in the watch list column. And again, when I show you the settings for the watch list columns, keep in mind it's the same exact settings for the scan. Okay, so I've just updated each of those values to the same Fibonacci values that we used for the chart study. And I'll hit apply and OK. And then what happens, as you saw previously, these values are automatically adjusting based upon those settings. And if we go to the chart, which I don't need to do right now, we'll see that these values are now showing exactly what the current price on the chart all the way to the right, the most active bar on the chart. And I've cleaned up the chart and restored everything back to default values. Let's go ahead and expand that out a little bit and show you the next setting, which is going to require a move to a lower time frame. And I have a lower time frame chart right over here. Let's go ahead and review the settings that are coming up next. And again, these settings are going to correspond with column 2 of our watch list. Let me show you. All right, so the settings we were reviewing previously, they were all dealing with the first custom column of the watch list. We're done with those settings. We've covered all of them. And the next few settings that we're adjusting on the chart are also going to be applied on the second column, the column to the right. Okay, so keep that in mind. And for this example, let me zoom in on one particular trade on the chart strategy right there. Yes, that's the one I'm looking for. And you can see the opening range. I want you to focus in on these yellow lines right here and how every time the price trades above the top of that range, that the bars are colored blue for bullish. Okay, and we've got the trend legend over here in the upper left, indicating that it is a bullish condition. And you notice that the chart strategy posted an entry right here as it broke above the opening range. We've already covered this when we were reviewing the chart strategy settings, but we're also going to cover this again briefly as a chart study setting because it is common to both. Let me move this over just a little bit so I have room for the settings. And again, we have both long and short on the chart at the same time, which I've already explained previously. And if you look at these 4 settings, 3 of these 4 settings are directly tied to the opening range. This one here, session end time, that one is actually going to be controlling your overnight high and low computations. So we'll go ahead and show you that, but it's not part of the opening range. So what we have for the opening range is the session start time, the first hour close time, and then the opening range type. Now, just because this setting says first hour close does not mean it has to be the first hour. You can adjust it to whatever time you like. It's just that the person who specified this for me explained that their methodology was to track the session open, and they wanted to track the close of the first hour. And then they made trading decisions based upon that. So very briefly, we're going to be showing you how the start and end time will affect the opening range computation, and we'll also show you how to change the opening range type and how that will impact the structure of the opening range as well. In other words, you got an option here. Let me go ahead and show it to you. You got an option to show the more traditional form of opening range, which is a high and low. So it will take the highest and lowest point between the start time and close time. That's the more traditional opening range. And the other option is the default, which is the open of the session and the close of the first hour. But again, like I said, you can adjust these however you like. Let's say we wanted to change the start time from 9:30 to 8:30. This is the same example I used for the chart strategy settings. And the idea here is maybe you're trading a futures contract and it opens at 8:30. Let me click apply and you can see how that changes the opening range. Look at this. It's way down here because this is the 8:30 bar and this is the open of the 8:30 bar. And so the opening range low has moved all the way down here. Now let's go ahead and update the close time. And we'll also move that 1 hour earlier from 10:30 to 9:30. Again, just kind of representing the idea of trading a futures contract and still grabbing the first hour range. Hit apply, and there you go. So you can see now that this first hour close has moved to 9:30 and drawn the line accordingly. Now I'll go ahead and set those back to the default values. There we are, just the way it started. And now let me go ahead and show you the next setting, which is the opening range type. Okay, I am skipping the session end time. We're going to get back to that in a second. But I want to finish up this thought here. Opening range type, it's set to open and close. Now we're going to change it to high and low. Now before I hit apply, I want you to just take a look at this chart. And based upon your understanding now of the 9:30 start time and the 10:30 close time for the opening range, where should these lines be placed once I hit the apply button? Ready? Did you get it? Did you see it ahead of time? Did you understand? I hope so. If you didn't, then just go ahead and watch this section of the video again, and then you'll be able to understand it over time. Okay, what it's doing is, let me go ahead and close this. What it's doing is it's grabbing the lowest low and the highest high in between the start and the close time Okay, so those two values will fix exactly the highest and lowest within that range. So instead of taking the session open and the close of the first hour, it's actually taking the highest high and the lowest low within that same time span. Okay, and that's the more traditional opening range breakout type of system that people tend to use. So you can see that this indicator includes quite a bit of flexibility, and you can adjust those times to whatever works for you, and you can back test because we've got a chart strategy that gives you the profit and loss report and helps you to dial in all of your parameters according to your own particular style. Okay, and I've gone ahead and reset that to default values, and let's go ahead and examine this next setting. And for this next setting, the session end time, what I really need to do is explain to you that it needs to be set to the very last minute of whatever is the session end time for the time zone you have applied to your charts. That's really the simple answer. It's really not intended to be used in any other fashion except for whatever time zone you have set for your charts. You set it to the very last minute of that regular session. And my charts are set to Eastern time zone. So let's go ahead and cancel this and show you where those settings are located. Right there, time zone. This is a global setting, and this setting will apply to all of your charts. I have mine set to New York. If you set yours to local time, then it will automatically adapt to whatever time zone you're in. Or you may set it to some other time zone, like maybe Chicago. So you need to keep this in mind. Look at what you have your chart set to, and make sure that you update these settings, whatever setting that has a time. Let's review those again, okay? Any setting that has a time, whether it be for the intraday trading start and end, or the intraday flat time, or the session start time, or the first hour close time, or the session end time. You need to make sure to understand what time zone your chart is set to and then adjust these accordingly. However, you need to know that when it comes to custom watch list columns and custom scans, they will all use Eastern time zone, and there's no way to change it. So just get used to using the Eastern time zones, right? Well, some people don't like that, but I want to confirm for you and help you understand that the watch list columns and the scans will always use Eastern time zone. This trips up a lot of people. They get their time zones mixed up, and they are looking at their chart and they're saying, wait a minute, at 10:30 it was, no. At 10:30 Eastern is what the scan is going to show. 10:30 Eastern is what the watch list is going to show. Okay, your chart might be set up differently, but the watch list and the scans are always going to be Eastern. So let's go ahead and examine these settings in the custom watch list column. Remember I said that it's column 2, the one that's set to intraday time frame. And as far as time-based settings, these are the only two time settings that we have included for the custom watch list column or for the scan. And because of what I just stated, watch list columns and scans always use Eastern time zone, you never have to touch this setting. You really don't. If at some point in the future Thinkorswim adds a new feature or functionality in which you can run a scan at something other than the Eastern time zone, then these settings might be adjusted. But until then, they won't need to be adjusted at all. Now, how do you change the opening range type? That's the other setting from the perspective of this custom watch list column, as well as the scan that's associated with it. And the way you do that is you move the word default from in front of the open close to in front of high low. So the location of the word default in this option group will determine which of these two options are active. So watch, I'll double click that. I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut, Control X for cut, and you get an error message. Don't panic. And then I'll use Control V for paste. I want to put a space between those two, and there you have it. Okay, open and close, and now has been changed to high low. That is now the active option for this setting. So that's how you change this setting, but I'll go ahead and change it back to default, because now I want to make sure that it matches the chart, and then we're going to go ahead and examine the chart and the watch list column so that you understand what the watch list column is telling you. For example, what's this ticker symbol on this chart? It's Apple, right? We're in the middle of the chart. We're not matched up with the watch list right now. So let's go ahead and pin that so that it doesn't fall behind the chart, and let's move our chart all the way to the right. And now we have a view of what the watch list column is showing. It's extended hours. Let's go ahead and verify that by editing the custom watch list column. You see it's 5 minute, include extended hours. It matches our chart time frame, which is 5 minutes, and it also includes extended hours. And so what you have here, if you count back from all the way back here, you'll find 89 consecutive bars of bullish trend. And you can see that this particular trade was taken out by the timeout exit, which is a setting that we covered on the chart strategy settings. Let's take a look at some of these others. Okay, look at this. BHP has got only 1 bar of bearish trend. So let's go ahead and update our link on our chart to red so that we can go ahead and just click on BHP and load that on the chart. And you can see all the way over here, the current value is 57.06. That's an after hours print, and it is a bearish bar, one single bearish bar all by itself. These values are obviously going to be more meaningful during the live market, during the regular session. Let's look at Costco, right? Costco, we've got 13 bars of bullish. CMG, what is that? Chipotle, that also has 13 bars of bullish trend. Let's go down here and look at this one, NOV. Okay, 2 bars of bearish trend. And let's look at V, that's Visa, 7 bars of bearish trend. Okay, so you start to get the idea of how to read this column. This column is showing you the number of consecutive bars of the current trend, and that current trend is determined by the opening range. And those opening ranges are adjustable. You can adjust the start time, the close time, and you can adjust the type, whether it is the open and close of that period or the high and low of that period. Okay, let me move that off to the side and let's go ahead and take a look at the next setting. Okay, and the next several settings are the aesthetics. So we are now entering the section of the chart settings in which we are dealing only with things that pertain to, I guess you would call it, look and feel. And so let's go ahead and look at this from a broader viewpoint, okay? And let me do one thing. Let me take off the stops and target exits, okay? So we're going to disable all of those profit targets and stop loss orders, okay? And I think that'll clean up the chart a little bit. Yeah. And then we can go ahead and examine these next few settings. Again, as I said, these are just aesthetics. It determines how things plot on the chart, colors, and what shows up on the chart and what doesn't show up on the chart. So none of these settings are going to be found in the custom scan or in the custom watch list column. So we're just going to breeze through these pretty quickly. Display trend legend, it is set to yes. If you want to turn it off because you have other things that you want to display in the upper left-hand corner, then you can turn it off. I'll go ahead and turn that back on. Notice the display trend method is set to paint bars. You can turn it off entirely if you don't want to see it, so that you can see the green and red bars on the chart. So we'll go ahead and turn that off. I've got another option for the displaying the trend bars. So we'll go ahead and change that from off to average. Notice there's 3 options available there. So you've got off, paint bars, or average. The reason I've added that one is because I understand that some people would prefer to see the moving average and be able to still see the green and red bars on the chart. So I've gone ahead and included an average that you can apply here, and the average will be colored exactly the same as the paint bars. Okay, so let's go ahead and zoom in on a small section of the chart. So now you can see exactly the same thing. As soon as the price trades below the opening range, you can see that that moving average changes color. Now you can also adjust the moving average length and the moving average type, and it will have absolutely no bearing whatsoever on the trend colors. It's still going to be colored based upon the opening range, so you can change the moving average length. Let's say you wanted to change it to a 50-period simple moving average, and you wanted to change the MA price. That's also something that you can adjust, but I won't do that here. Okay, so there you go. You can adjust that moving average however it is that you like. You may have some other purposes for the moving average, and you can adjust it to whatever you like. And again, it's not going to change the colors at all. The colors are strictly determined by the position of the price relative to the opening range. I've gone ahead and set the chart back to its default values. Let's go ahead and continue on exploring these last few settings. We're getting close to the end of the settings here, so bear with me as I complete this section. The next setting that we want to examine, display periods. You have 2 options for current period or all, and that's pretty simple and straightforward. We'll hit apply, and what happens is the chart will now only display the levels on the current period. But notice it does not impact any of the other aspects of how the signals are presented or how the trends are presented. It's just an easy way to clean up the chart so that your levels, which can get a bit overwhelming, are only plotted on the current session and not on all sessions. Okay, so I'll turn that back to all, and then we've got the higher time frame averages. So the next three settings are optional plots that you can include. I've intentionally kept things really clean and neat up to this point because I wanted to focus on the core and fundamental elements of this indicator and chart strategy, which are the ATR levels and the opening range. So now we're going to be looking at some other aspects of this indicator which are included but are not part of how the signals are determined. Okay, so these are additional tools that you can add to the chart in order to help you understand the overall trend of the market. While you're back testing, it does not get included in the back test results, okay, because they're not impacting the signals. But you can use it as a potential research tool by examining the chart and understanding where is price relative to the higher time frame moving averages or the prior period high and low or the overnight high-low levels and things like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn those on one by one. We've got the higher time frame averages. Okay, we're going to turn that on first, and then before I hit apply, I want to go ahead and point out these are the three moving averages that are included for the higher time frames. Okay, so the default values are a 21 period exponential, a 50 period simple, and a 200 period simple, and it's all taken from the higher time frame. Whatever you select for the higher time frame, that's what is going to be used for the moving average. The moving averages and the ATR levels are both going to be using the same higher time frame. So we'll go ahead and hit OK and apply and OK, and now we can examine the new lines that have been added to the chart. You can see these higher time frame moving averages because they have these little diagonal connectors between the periods. Okay, so these are the values of each moving average which are taken from the higher time frame. I'll just scrunch that chart up a little bit so that you can see you've got a blue line, a white line, and a cyan line. Let's go ahead and look at the settings so that you understand how to adjust those. Okay, like I said, here are your settings. So you've got MA length 1 is 21, MA length 2, and MA length 3. Okay, if you go down to the plot section, then you will see that you have MA1, MA2, MA3. So you can see that the white one is the 21 period exponential, the blue one is the 50 period simple, and the cyan one is the 200 period simple. And you can adjust the style to however you like, and you can also adjust those values as I indicated here. And again, they have absolutely no bearing on any of the signals. Perhaps based on feedback I received from people who purchase this indicator, maybe at some point in the future, they will be included in the signals as a filter, perhaps. It just depends on the feedback I get. If someone finds something useful and helpful that is going to benefit the majority of our users, then I'll certainly consider adding additional functionality. Okay, let's go ahead and turn those off. There we go. And then I want to go ahead and turn on the next setting. I didn't want to have both of those at the same time because this chart can get pretty noisy pretty quick. So prior period levels, let's turn that on. And again, this is the previous high low. So right here, this green line is the high from the previous period. It's the highest high from the previous period. And the low down here is the lowest low from the previous period. Now these values are taken also from the higher time frame. That's why it's called the prior period. Okay, prior period high and low. If you change this to a weekly time frame, then these lines are going to be taken from the weekly time frame, and it's going to be the previous week high and the previous week low. Okay, and it's not going to include extended hours because in time frames from daily up do not have any extended hours data. Okay, so that's pretty simple and straightforward. Let's look at the next setting. I'm going to turn this one off first. And the next one we're going to be looking at is the overnight levels. And there we go. So we clean that up. Now we're back to only the opening range and only the ATR levels. Okay. And now I'm going to turn on the overnight high and low. And what I want you to understand about the overnight high and low is they only work if you have included extended hours on your chart. It's impossible to compute an overnight high and low without including extended hours. So we'll go ahead and turn that on, and there you have it. Okay, so that's telling you, okay, this dark green line, okay, that's the extended hours high, and the red line, that's the extended hours low. Okay, when I say overnight, I'm talking about the light gray areas between the regular sessions. Okay, we can change this back to Apple because Apple has quite a bit more trading during extended hours. Let's shrink that up just a little bit so we've got more to view on the chart. And let's examine this again. Okay, so that dark green line, that's the highest high for the overnight session, right? And then this red line down here, that's the lowest low for that overnight session. And let me go ahead and turn that off and set that back before moving on to the next setting. Okay, and so the next setting is going to be, we got this one right here, line label offset. But that is really used only when you have the line labels turned on. Okay, so we're going to first turn on the line labels, and we have three options here. Okay, you can add line labels for only the ATRs or only the others, right, which would be anything but the ATRs. And you can also add them for all. So let's do this step by step. We'll add it for the ATRs. And let me go ahead and adjust a setting on this chart. So now the study plots are always going to be displayed on the chart. And so you can see that you've got the ATR 1.2, the ATR 1, and the ATR 0.5. And those values that are displayed in those labels will be impacted by the values that you set for the ATR multipliers. It will automatically update. Okay, so let's see what happens if we change it to other. Okay, so now we've got previous close, previous high, and previous low. We have the labels here, but we don't have the levels. So you want to make sure that if you do turn those on, you want to go ahead and make sure that you have them displayed. Okay, there's no labels for the higher time frame averages, so we'll just go ahead and update that. And now you can see that those labels are tied to those levels that we previously reviewed. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you have those labels turned on, make sure that you have the lines turned on as well. But you can use the labels separately. If you don't want the line on there because it's messing up your view of the price action, then turn on the labels. And the other setting too, now that we have some labels on the chart, is we can adjust the offset. So let's change that to 10. And what happens is those get moved to the right. There we go. See that? All I had to do is add a few more bars to the right expansion area, and you can see where those labels are. So you have the ability to push those labels off to the right and get them out of the way and prevent them obscuring the price action. And let's see what happens when we turn all of this stuff on, and we'll increase that to 15, and we'll turn this to all, apply, and OK. So here you have all of your labels, all of the lines displayed, everything that's available in this indicator. Okay, now you can see why I started off nice and clean with just the ATR levels and opening range. There's a whole lot here. And I'll explain also that these levels for the overnight high and low, as well as the prior period high and low, and the moving averages, they have no impact whatsoever on the signals that are created by the chart strategy. So they won't be used in any of the back testing. You can put them on your chart. They're there as a visual aid. And again, like I said, based on feedback I received from clients who purchased this, I may at some point in the future include some additional functionality to include those in the backtesting results. So the feedback is important. It's up to you. You guys get to determine the course and the direction this indicator takes over time. And just talk to some people who purchased the divergence indicators who've been giving me feedback on those. We've had several upgrades over the years for those indicators, and that indicator has turned out to be quite an amazing tool for traders. And we are just about done. We have one more setting to adjust here, and that is the decimals to round. And that's pretty simple. All it does is it controls how many decimals are displayed by the labels. And that setting for decimals to round is only applied to the overnight high and overnight low. So if you look very carefully over here on the right, you'll see that there's 2 decimal places for the overnight high and 2 for the overnight low. We can change that setting to a value of 1. And you can see that now it reverts to only 1 decimal place. Okay, even though we had it set for 3 decimal rounding, what we had were values that were exactly 2 decimals in length. So if you have another instrument that trades in fractional amounts, then you'll have multiple decimal places available. For instance, if you're trading something like a Forex pair, then you're going to have a whole lot more than just 2 or 3 decimal places. So that's why that setting is there, so that you can adjust that and display those values accordingly. And with that, we have concluded all of the settings for both the chart strategy, the chart study, as well as the custom watch list columns and the custom scan. Let's go ahead and reset our charts, and then let's go ahead and review our agenda for today's video and see where we're at. So demonstrate how the settings impact the behavior of each element in the package. I have completed all of those. But what we do want to do is run some custom scans for you. And what I'm going to do next is run some scans. I'm going to add the custom watch list columns to the scan, which I will demonstrate. And then we'll run some scans and look up some of the stocks from the results list and interpret what you see in the scan results and show you how they appear on the chart. Then we're going to get into some example charts so you can see this plotted on futures and Forex and some other instruments. We're also going to include some different chart styles and talk about their impact on the ability for backtesting. And then the last part of the video is going to be the live demo, which is where we show you how to place your orders and manage them in a way that is matching how the chart strategy is plotting them on the chart. By all means, if you go through all the trouble of optimizing your parameters and backtesting, when you move to simulated live trading and then live trading, you want to make sure that you understand how to place the orders in a way that is the same way that chart strategy handles those orders. So we'll explain that to you with an actual demo using the on-demand feature. So for now, let's go ahead and get into some scans. For those who may have missed the installation and setup instructions, I've gone ahead and reset the scan to its default settings. If you ever want to get back to the default settings for a custom scan, then you just go ahead up here to the menu and select Reset, and then it will automatically set up everything just as you see here. Now we don't need any of these stock filters, so I'm going to remove these 3 stock filters. I'm going to set up a top level filter, and I'm going to select all optionable, intersect with a category of all stocks, and exclude a category of all over-the-counter stocks. Then I'm going to add 2 study filters to the scan. I'm going to leave this one set to daily. I'm going to set this one set to a 5-minute time frame. I'm going to make sure that that box is checked for extended hours. And as a point of reference, I'm just replicating the scan that was used to generate the screenshot on our website. This is where our premium indicators are located on our website, and this is the ATR levels. This screenshot right here in the lower right shows a scan, and this is the scan that I'm going to set up here for you. And we've already done most of the steps. All I've got to do is put the code in for the 2 study filters and then hit the scan button. Okay, so I've got the code inserted into the study filters, and I've got a couple of custom watch list columns in here. These are the same custom watch list columns that you saw during the installation and setup, and also during the section of the video showing how to adjust the settings. So custom 01 is a column that is set to a daily time frame, and that is showing the percent of the ATR. And the second column here is set to an intraday time frame. It's actually the same exact time frame that we've been using on the examples, and that is a 5-minute time frame with extended hours included. And now let me go ahead and show you how to adjust the signals at the bottom of the code for the custom scans. First, I'm going to do the daily time frame, and we're going to be using the default settings, so there was no need to change any of the multipliers or the ATR length. The ATR length is set to 14, which is the default, and the multipliers are set to 50, 100, and 120, and that's at the very top of the code. And this line right here is the scan signal, and you have 2 additional inputs that you may adjust right here. And there's some instructions here, so you just read those instructions and you'll understand that you have a minimum percent and a maximum percent. And what you do is you adjust those values based upon what percent of ATR you are looking for. So let's take a scenario. I want to locate overbought stocks. So these stocks are going to be ATR values greater than 100. So I need a minimum of 100. And maximum, sky's the limit. But I think 200 is going to be more than sufficient to capture everything that's out there. So what we're doing is we're trying to find stocks that are above the max ATR value, which is the 100 ATR. I'll go ahead and hit OK for that and accept it. And now I'm going to go ahead and open up the one for the 5-minute time frame. And you can see this one has many more options than the previous one. One, you have a scan for a bullish trend, and another you have a scan for bearish trend. And these two are tied to the opening range. If you remember the demonstration for the chart settings, you'll find that there's an opening range, and any stocks that are trading above the opening range are bullish, and any stocks that are trading below the opening range are marked as bearish. And so that's what these two signals are designed to capture. Now, for any scan, you can only use one plot statement, so you can see that these other plot statements have been marked off with comments using the hashtag. So we have this one here set to bullish, and then we have a couple of other scans down here which I will review. This one here will allow you to scan for a bar count, which means the number of bars in the current trend. So if you're looking for a fixed value of bar count, then these would be the scan signals that you would select. And then this one down here is very much like it, except I think it has a little bit more utility. I don't think many people are going to be using the fixed bar count. I think they're going to be more inclined to use a range of bars in the current trend. I think that's going to be more helpful, but I included both, and they operate very much the same, except this one includes two inputs, bar count min and bar count max. And all you do is you adjust that to however many bars that you're looking for the trend. If you want a trend that's mature and has been in place for quite some time, then you might select a higher value. If you're looking for a trend that is brand new and it's just started, then you probably want to use a lower value. And then below, you can choose between the bullish or the bearish conditions. So let's start off right here with a scan for bullish. Okay, so take a look at our custom columns over here. You can see that all of the values are greater than 100 or less than 200. And that is the impact of the first study filter right here that's set to daily. And then column 2, notice everything is bullish. And we did not use a scan signal on the 5-minute time frame, which restricted the bar numbers to a specific range. We just simply said any bullish candle at all. Let's go ahead and bring a chart in so that we can examine some of these. And let's take a look at one of these that has a very low value for current bar trend. Okay, so EAVA, let's take a look at that one. So EAVA, confirmed, it is above the extreme ATR, right? And if you look at the watch list column, a value of 144 is clearly above the 120 level, and it's got 2 consecutive bars of bullish trend. Now, this is in the after hours market, and as I mentioned during our review of the settings, it's going to be a lot more relevant when we're in a regular trading session. But I just wanted you to understand how to interpret the watch list column values and colors as it pertains to the scan and the way we have things set up for the video. Let's take a look at another one here. Let's look at ASRT. That one is also above the max ATR, but it's below the extreme ATR, and we've got 2 bars consecutive bullish. Now let's adjust the settings for the 5-minute time frame study filter. And this time I want to go ahead and select a different scan signal. I'll go ahead and change that to bearish. I'll click OK and then press scan. Okay, so we've got some results here, and let's go ahead and take a look at BP. And you can see on the watch list column, BP shows a ATR value of about 109, so it's just above the max ATR but below the extreme ATR, and we've got 13 consecutive bars of bullish. Let's look at this one here, LPL. Boy, that one is way off the charts, huh? LPL, okay, so you can see it is well above the extreme ATR. In fact, in this case, it gapped up and over the extreme ATR, and we've got 1 bar. It's right here. You can barely see it because it's actually obscured by this extreme ATR level. And now let's go ahead and update these signals again and try a bar range. Okay, so this time I'm actually going to turn off these 2, right? So both of these are off. So none of the scan signals are active at the moment, and you can see the error down here. At least 1 plot should be defined. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this one right down here. It's for bullish, and it's going to give us a bar count minimum. I'm going to set the minimum to 5 and the maximum to 10. So what we should expect to see is the second column in our watch list should show values between 5 and 10. And there you go. You see that the second column here has values between those two limits that we put into the scan filter. And we can take a look at a couple of those. Okay, I think you got the idea there. Let's go ahead and flip that around for the bearish side. So all we do is we put a hash mark in front of this, and we take the hash mark out from in front of this one. And now we're going to be looking at the bearish side, okay? Still the same bar count, minimum, maximum, 5 and 10. Oh, and there's only one stock right there. You can see it's got a bearish indication there, -8. So that's 8 bars, 8 consecutive bars of bearish trend. And there you go. Now let's go ahead and make an adjustment to the daily time frame filter. Remember, we set this previously to 100 for the minimum and 200 for the maximum. And so remember, this scan was intended to find stocks that were overbought. Now let's go ahead and flip that around so that we can look for stocks that are oversold. In this case, we're going to be looking at stocks that have a minimum percent of -200 and a maximum percent of -100. Did that confuse you? Okay, let's think about this for a second, okay? Because we're dealing with negative values, so we have to look at it as below the zero line. Let's just pretend there's a zero line, and so we're looking at below the zero line. What we need to understand here is that when we're below the zero line, a -100 is a larger value than a -200. Okay, so does that make sense now? And we have no matching symbols. Let's try to back that out again. Let's try to find stocks that are maximum -50 and minimum -100. So what I'm doing now is I'm moving up a little bit higher on the chart so that we're not in the extreme oversold conditions. We're kind of in the middle ground, somewhere between the -50 ATR and the -100 ATR. So let's give that a try and see if we get any results. Friday was pretty bullish, and there weren't very many stocks that were down on the day, so that may explain why we're having difficulty finding examples. There we go. So now we have some results to look at. Let's pick on this one right here, DCP, because that one's pretty close to the -100 ATR. And there it is, okay? So you can see the positive max ATR, the positive 100 ATR is up here, the positive 120 ATR is here. This is the positive 50. Then down here is the -50, down here is the -100, and then at the very bottom is the -120. Okay, so if you followed along watching our settings, then you understand how those values are positive on the top and negative on the bottom, and that's how you tie together what you're seeing in the watch list columns and how we set up our scan. Let's say we wanted to find stocks that were in between the previous day close and the -50% level. How would we identify stocks in that range? In that case, we want the maximum percent to be 0 and the minimum percent to be 50, -50 actually. So we're going to be looking for stocks that are currently trading somewhere between the previous day close and the -50% ATR level. And boy, did we get a lot of results on that one, huh? Let's look at this one here. This one is really close to the previous day close right here. So we'll look at that one, BROS. Oh, Dutch Brothers, coffee. Coffee sounds good about now. And yes, you can see that it is right about splitting the difference between the +50 and the -50, which is right where the previous day close is located. You can see the previous day close is right about here. You can plot it on the chart, but I've turned off those extra plots to keep the chart a little cleaned up. And let's see if there's any other examples that we want to take a look at here. I'm going to look at this one because this one is almost right on the -50% ATR level. So let's look at DKS. Okay, so you can see DKS, the column is showing us a -49.68, and there it is. Price is almost right on the -50% ATR level. Okay, if you haven't caught on yet, then just watch this section of the video over again. The ATR study itself is one that finds overbought and oversold stocks, and so you want to try to think about it from those terms. If you want to find stocks that are oversold, then you want to find stocks that are down here right around the -100 and the -120 ATRs. If you're looking to find stocks that are overbought, then you want to build your scan so that you're looking for stocks that are somewhere around the 100 or the 120 ATR or higher. Okay, so that's it for the scans. I don't have anything else to show you there for the scans. And now we're going to move back into the charts. And then I'm going to show you how this indicator will plot on various other chart types and ticker symbols and time frames. Okay, I'm going to pick the chart on the left here because it seems a little bit cleaner. We don't have too much on the chart there. Now let's see, the first thing I'll do is I'll run through some chart types. We're going to look at the Hahn-Tech, and when you select Hahn-Tech on the chart, watch what happens. Only the candles change. I want you to understand that there's something very specific that I need to explain about the Hahn-Tech candles on Thinkorswim. When you set your chart to Hahn-Tech candles, the only thing that changes are the candles. Okay, the underlying data, the underlying open, high, low, close of each candle remains fixed. It's still the same, and the Hahn-Tech candles are modified values for open, high, low, close. And so they display a little bit differently and they display different values. However, every chart study that you apply to a Hahn-Tech chart on Thinkorswim is always going to remain using the original open, high, low, close. Simply changing your chart from a standard candle to a Hahn-Tech candle does not change any of the indicators you've applied to the chart. They're all going to remain the same, exactly the same as they were when you had your regular candles. So I'll go ahead and put that back to regular candles, and then let's go ahead and take a look at a tick chart. I have here a 1600 tick time frame saved, and I really did not expect this to work because in the past Thinkorswim has not enabled higher time frames, or what we call secondary aggregation periods, when you have tick charts on the chart. And I can see here that we don't have a P&L graph, so that may be an indication that it's not quite fully supported yet. And I'm going to give you the same caution that I've given for all the other videos that I've published for chart strategies, and that is that I do not recommend that you use tick chart aggregations or range bar charts for backtesting, because I don't know for certain that those charts will produce signals that can be replicated in the real world. All right. Tick charts in particular will vary widely from one platform to another. If you compare tick charts among TradeStation and Sierra Chart and Thinkorswim, you're going to get radically different results. So even if you were to spend the time to backtest a signal or a setup on one platform and you expect to be able to port that over to another platform using tick-based aggregation periods, you're going to be terribly disappointed because the tick charts are not going to be the same between the platforms. And range bar charts, we'll go ahead and load a range bar chart on here just to see what happens. And we have a warning up here. Okay, the study is throwing an exception, but we need to read the notice here. So you see this little icon in the upper left. What do we have here? Study requires data for at least 201 bars to be computed. Only 72 are available. Okay, so let's increase. Okay, here we go. Secondary subscriptions are not allowed on range charts. So right there, that second message, not the one at the top. The one at the top is just simply saying we don't have enough bars on the chart. Okay, so we add more bars on the chart, but now we got a problem. Secondary subscriptions are not allowed on range charts. So what it's telling you right here is that the ATR levels are not going to be able to plot because it's not supported. So let's go ahead and throw 10 days on here anyway. And you can see that we don't have any ATR levels plotted whatsoever. And again, it's this message right here. Secondary subscriptions are not allowed on range charts, which is fine because, as I said earlier, I strongly recommend against anyone using range bar charts for any kind of chart strategy or backtesting. Range bars are predicated upon the start point. You change the start point and you change the bars. It's not a robust environment from which to be backtesting setups. Okay, so let's set that back to our original time frame of 1 hour. Good. And now let's take a look at some ticker symbols. Okay, I've got a watch list here and it's linked one-to-one with the chart, so we can click on any item in here and it will automatically update the chart. We can look at the Euro-US dollar pair. And again, the chart is still set to 1 hour time frame and it's still set to a weekly higher time frame. And you can see that everything appears to be plotting correctly. And we even have a P&L graph on the bottom that is also functional. Forex pairs, we got the US dollar, Japanese yen, and again, it's producing a little error right here. Let's go ahead and look at this volume Okay, we don't care about volume. That's fine. Don't show me that message again. That's good. And let's go ahead and look at the US dollar Canadian pair. Look at the P&L curve. Let's scroll over here and see, yes, there are some signals that have been plotted here. Okay, let's look at some futures. Here's a Bitcoin futures. We got a notification here. Oh, okay, looks like ATR level. Yep, ATR level alert. It's been triggered. That's probably on another chart. And let's go ahead and take a look at the Japanese yen futures. And then I got a couple of index futures we'll take a look at. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at the crude oil futures. And then we got the bonds. Here's some gold futures here. We can look at the E-mini S&P 500. There's the Dow E-mini, the Russell 2000. How about one without volume here? The SPX, that's an index without volume. I can assure you there's no volume metrics anywhere within this code, so you shouldn't have any problem with Forex or index ticker symbols. Okay, I think that's all the ticker symbols that I needed to show you. You've seen it plotted on a Heikin-Ashi chart. I've shown you how it works on a tick chart as well as a range bar chart, in which case it doesn't work. But also I showed you several different instruments like futures and Forex pairs. And that concludes this section of our video in which we show you the example charts, right? So that's item 6. And now we're going to go ahead and get right into the live demo. So let me go ahead and set up my charts here for that. And in previous videos, I've had a real trouble getting the on-demand feature to work smoothly. And I spent some time on the phone with support at TD Ameritrade, and they helped me to straighten things out. Essentially what I had to do is cut everything down to the bare minimum. He said, well, try plotting just 1 or 2 days worth instead of, I think the default, which I had was, 5 days or 10 days or something like that. So I just thought I'd give you some tips on that. This indicator right here is not the one we're going to be demonstrating. This is our divergence indicator. So let me pause the recording and get this chart set up and ready for our live demo. And I've updated the chart, and before I hit the on-demand feature, I wanted to just give you a heads up and show you which particular signal that we're going to be examining and using for the live demo. And this is it right here, this little section right here. Let me zoom into that section of the chart. What I've done is I've used the benefit of hindsight to adjust the target and stop so that we have a profitable trade to use as an example. I've got the profit target set for 1%, and I've got the stop loss set for 0.5%, and that allows us to view a very brief trade, and it's a catch entry, a catch long entry here at the -100 ATR. And then you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bars before we actually hit the target and exit. So we're going to go ahead and activate the on-demand feature, and when I rejoin you with the video recording, we're going to be right at the opening of this bar right here. Now this particular setup, okay, the catch long entry, that is a limit order. Okay, you're going to have a buy limit order sitting down here at the 100 ATR, and when price moves down and through that level, it will trigger that limit order and then open up our bracket orders as well. Notice on the right hand side I've got it set for trading 100 shares. I've got auto send enabled, and I've got a trigger with bracket, which gives me a limit and a stop order automatically, and those are tied together so that when one hits, the other is automatically canceled. And when the entry occurs, then I can automatically adjust them to match these stop and the target that you see on the chart here. So once again, let me review. This particular setup is not waiting for the bar to close. This particular setup is waiting for a level to be hit. So in order to enter this trade, you would use a limit order at the 100 ATR, and then you would use a limit order at the profit target and a stop order at the stop loss. Okay, so I've got everything set up here, and you've got our 100 ATR here is at 139.62. So we need a buy limit order at 139.62. So we'll use our active trader gadget over here, 139.62. So we want to place a buy limit order right there at 139.62. And then let's go ahead and give us some room here with these limit orders. I'll go ahead and move those from the chart. And now we'll wait for this order to fill as the price moves down into this level. And then we'll adjust the limit order for the profit target and the stop loss order for the stop loss level as soon as they appear on the chart. And it looks like the chart is a little behind times here. The chart is showing a current price of 140.14, and active trader over here is showing a much more current price. Again, this is just a little buggy. I've made some improvements with the help of Thinkorswim support, but it's still quite a buggy application. At least the active trader window is working and functioning well. The chart always seems to be lagging behind. So let me pause the recording here and update you as the trade progresses. And in fact, I'll tell you that this next bar should have already formed. There should be a bar right here because of the clock. The clock tells me that the 9:55 bar should have already opened. So the chart is quite a bit behind, and the active trader, though, is functioning correctly. So now we just have to wait for the chart to catch up. And I want to give you a helpful suggestion here. Don't try to use the on-demand feature for practice trading. Okay, use paper money. Use paper money during a live market to simulate your live market trades. I'm using on-demand feature because I get to use the benefit of hindsight to find signals that have already taken place, so I know how the trade is going to play out, and I can prepare ahead of time and save a lot of time in video production and save a lot of time for you as well. So just a heads up, don't try to use on-demand feature for your trading practice. Okay, it's got some limitations, and those limitations can be very frustrating, especially if you're trying to learn. So I'll go ahead and pause the video recording here, and I'll update you as soon as those profit target and stop loss level appear on the chart so that we can update our orders and follow the rest of the trade. And here's a quick update. I did change the chart time from 1 day of 5-minute bars to 2 days of 5-minute bars, and when the chart refreshed, the new bar appeared showing the entry point, which is right here. 139.62, I guess, is where the exact level is. So you can see that signal marked by the strategy right here. And we're just waiting for the stop loss level and the profit target level to appear on the chart so that we can set our orders accordingly. Okay, there we go. We've got our bar on the chart there, and we'll go ahead and adjust these levels and then make sure that they're set up at the right values here. So we need a 141.02 for the limit order. 141.05.02. Okay, do you see that right there? I just dragged that right to the 141.02. Whoops, 03.02. There we go. So now that is exactly at the right level. You can see that little blue bubble right there that gives you the value of the profit target. And then the stop loss order, I was a little bit hasty with that. It needs to be at 138.92. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that chart a little bit more so we have more room to work with there. And if I hover over that order, it tells me it's at 138.89. I need to put it at 92. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that up and see if I can get that. If not, then I've got to use the active trader to do that. Okay, look at that. Look, 92, 138.92. There we go. So I've got the limit order up at the profit target level of 141.02, and I've got the stop order down here at 138.92. And again, just to review, I used a limit buy order to enter at that level. Okay, I did not use a market order. Although I could have just waited for the price action. I could have manually hit a market order at that point. But if you want it to get as close as possible to the way that the chart strategy is marking the entries and exits, then you have to follow these instructions that I'm giving you. Okay, you have to use a limit order in this case. Okay, so let's go ahead and pause the recording here and let a few more bars play out so that we save time on the video. And just another quick update, I've pressed the step forward button and added a few more bars to the chart. This bar right here is a 1020, and according to my notes, the bar that actually hits the target is going to be the 1030 bar, and so that's going to be a few more bars into the future. So let me pause the video recording and add some more bars to the chart so that we can continue on watching this trade unfold. There we go. We added a couple of more bars to the chart. Now the active bar is the 1020 bar, and the clock is actually showing 1024. So we're getting pretty close to the target here. We've just got a couple of more bars to go. So let me go ahead and pause the video and keep you updated as the trade progresses. And this is getting really close. This is not the bar that is going to trigger the target according to my notes. But I wanted to go ahead and record this little section here so that you could see how close it comes. Here you see our limit order is at 141.02. And even if it trades at 141.02, there we go. So we were just triggered. Okay, good. So that was an exit. Okay, so the chart was a little bit behind. I can see this is now a 1030 bar, and that's the bar that triggers the trade. So yes. So this concludes this particular setup. I also want to show you an opening range breakout because I did mention that the order entry is slightly different than the catch. Okay, so when you have the catch set up, that's going to be a limit order. When you have the break set up or the opening range breakout set up, those are going to be a different type of order. So I'm going to go ahead and briefly show you an example of that. But there is one last thing I wanted to show you on this particular trade setup, and that is, how do you tell where your profit target, and I totally did not expect to see that line continue to the left there and mark on that entry bar. I did everything I could possibly think of to make it work, and it wasn't working, and it might be something to do with the on-demand feature, but I just wanted to give you a heads up anyway. This is bizarre. I don't understand why that line wasn't marked on that entry bar during the demonstration, and now it is. Kind of strange. But I just want to show you something, just in case. I want to make sure you're prepared. Let's go ahead and look at the settings. The stops and target exits. I've got the target set for 1%. I've got the stop amount set for 0.5%. Keep those values in mind. Cancel out of those. I'm going to grab a drawing tool. And the drawing tool I'm going to grab is a trend line. I've got my trend line set up to automatically show the label. And when you draw a trend line from an entry point to a target, it will show you the percent difference from your entry to your target. So even if this target does not plot on the chart immediately, you can still use the trend line tool if you know your percent value. Okay, watch. We'll do the same thing on the stop side. Okay, we'll just take that trend line, start it right here at the entry point, move it down here until it says about 0.5%. Do you see that? Right about there. Okay, so 0.5%. So now you can see that that line terminates right in line with the stop loss order. And the other line that is 1% terminates right in line with the profit target. Okay, so during the demo, this profit target and this stop loss didn't show until the bar that follows the entry bar. And I just wanted to give you this heads up, just a quick little tool that you can use in case Thinkorswim glitches and doesn't display those values immediately as soon as you enter your trade. I know how that could cause a bit of panic and frustration. So this is just a little tool that you can use to alleviate that stress and anxiety. So just be mindful of where your profit and target loss settings are, what percentage values, and then use a trend line tool and make sure you have your, oh, well, let me show you that too. So you right click on the trend line, edit properties, right? And so we're going to edit the trend line 1, and then you edit the properties. And here it is right there, label position and show label. Those are the two settings that you want to set. Adjust them however it is that you want, okay? And then save as default. You want to click that button, save as default. And that way, every time you draw a trend line, it will always have that label, and you can use that. It'll tell you the number of bars, it'll tell you the number of days, the number of hours, the number of minutes, and it is really helpful. It's really handy. So get used to using these trend line tools for this type of thing, and I think it will save you a lot of time and pain and frustration as you are working on your charts. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and reset everything and show you the opening range breakout type of entry, just as I promised. Okay, and I've reset the chart to show the opening range breakout entries. In fact, I've selected a short entry. The last one was a long entry, so let's go ahead and demonstrate a short entry for you. And again, I want to review. There's your target, there's your stop loss, and this is using the benefit of hindsight. We're going to use this trade as the example. And I've activated the on-demand feature and set it to that time and date, November 8th at 13:56. And you can see that this is the bar right here that I was pointing at, which is going to cross below this. And for this particular setup, for the opening range breakout, you have to wait for the close to go above the opening range in the case of a long entry, or below the opening range in the case of a short entry. So in this particular case, we're going to be waiting for the bar to close. So as soon as the bar closes, we're going to use a sell market order, and then we've got our bracket orders already established here. And as soon as we hit that sell market order, we should see a new bar on the chart, and we should see the profit target and the stop loss levels immediately appear as the next bar gets printed on the chart. I've also turned on the trend bars so that you can see the colors of the trend, and you can see that we're in the gray area here because we're between the opening ranges. And as soon as this bar closes below the lower end of the opening range, it's going to turn to magenta. And this being the bar of 1355, which is 1:55 p.m., it closes just before 2 p.m. So we're going to wait until this clock for the on-demand feature shows 13:59, and that's when I'm going to come back to you with this video. Before I press pause, I want to just mention, did you see how that bar changed to magenta? And for just an instant it changed to magenta as it dipped down below that line, and then as soon as it traded back above it, that signal disappeared. Okay, that's your heads up. That's how you know that this particular signal is requiring that the bar close below that level, because as soon as it goes back above the level, the signal disappears and the bar turns back to gray. Just a quick update, we've got about 10 seconds, actually about 5 seconds left until this bar closes, so I'm going to make sure that my mouse cursor is right over that sell market button and click that as soon as that bar closes. There we go. And you notice that we had to wait until that bar closed before we enter that trade because the signal is invalid until it closes below the lower end of the opening range. Now that we have our profit and loss targets on there, I'll go ahead and update our orders. 139.46 for the stop loss order, and I think I moved that just before I pressed, yeah, I got to update that. 139.46, there we go. And then the same thing I've got to do with this one here. I've got to put it at 137.72. There it is. Okay, so we've got our orders set up. And again, just to review, we entered on a close of the signal bar because the signal is not valid until it closes beyond that level. And then once those target and stops appear on the chart, we can adjust our orders. So we've got a stop order here to buy ourselves out of the short trade if we trade above 139.46, and we've got a limit order down here at the profit target level to buy us out at a profit if the candle trades through this level. And because of the benefit of hindsight, I already understand that this is going to occur on a bar that is stamped 1425 on the chart. So I'm going to go ahead and add some bars to the chart and come back to you to update you. Okay, I've added a few bars to the chart by hitting the step forward button on the on-demand feature, and this is the bar stamped 1420, so we do have to wait for the next. And believe it or not, Thinkorswim crashed while I was just speaking there, so I had to go ahead and fire things back up and reset all the conditions. So if you see things that are off just a penny or two, then that's the reason for it. So as I was saying, this 1420 bar is the bar just before the one that exits the trade. So we need one more bar to be added to the chart, and then we wait for that bar to trade through this target level to take us out of the trade. Let me go ahead and pause the video recording and come back to you with an update. Here's a quick update. We're getting pretty close to hitting that limit order. We're just about ready to add the next bar to the chart. There we go, and according to my notes, this is the 1425 bar and it is the one that takes this trade out at the profit target. So we're just going to sit here and watch this for a little bit. Okay, so you can see we're approaching that limit order right here at 137.72. We just traded through it, and you saw it exit on the active trader, and then you also saw the exit signal appear on the chart strategy. So this is a demonstration of how you manage your orders to replicate the same way that the chart strategy is producing these signals on the chart. Very important that you understand how to do that for each signal. And so let's review. I've shown you how to do the catch as well as the opening range, and I want to show you another signal, but I don't want to take up more time in the video, so let me just go ahead and review in the settings. There is another type of setup called break. So let me go ahead and set this up for a break setup and then search for an example, and I'll explain to you how to manage those orders. It's going to be very much like the opening range. Okay, you're going to wait for the bar to close as it crosses that level. But let me go ahead and set up the charts and get back to you with the details. Okay, I've located a signal that's a good example for us to demonstrate the break long entry. And this is a different symbol, Costco. I've got the chart set up for an hourly time frame with a 1 week higher time frame. And I just want to get you oriented here. You can see these dashed lines. That's the 50% ATRs. That's the plus 50%, the minus 50%. On top, you have the 100 ATR and the 120 ATR. And on the bottom, you have the minus 100 and the minus 120 ATR. Okay, so I just wanted to get you oriented. The break long entry occurs at the plus 50% ATR, and the break short entry would occur at the minus 50% ATR. And there are certain conditions that are required, so you simply have to wait for those signals to plot on the chart. This is, again, one of those signals where you wait for the bar to close. So as long as you're not using a 1 minute time frame, you've got plenty of time to see the signal on the chart and prepare your orders for entry. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this particular section of the chart right here. There we go. So hopefully you haven't lost your way. Again, the dashed line here, that's the plus 50% ATR. The previous day close was below it, and then it opened above it. Okay, but notice this is a red candle, and look at where the entry level is. The entry level is at the close of this bar. So the entry level for the break long entry as well as the break short entry is exactly the same as the opening range. You wait for the bar to close on the other side of the level, because if the bar does not close on the correct side of that level, then the signal disappears from the chart and you don't have a valid trade. And then you would go ahead and place your limit order at the target level and then your stop loss order at the stop loss level, and then wait for the rest of the trade to play out. And I understand that that was an awful lot of information, and this is an extremely long video, and I really applaud you for sticking it out and watching through this entire video. And I'm very glad to be able to produce tools like this, and I'm very excited to see how people are going to be able to make use of this tool in backtesting their own trading methodologies and understanding how they can refine their edges, sharpen their edges, so to speak, and learn how to optimize their parameters. And again, I want to give you a word of caution. Backtesting is something that you should take very seriously. You should do it with intention, and you should have a plan. And I do have a plan eventually to begin teaching people how to do backtesting properly and thoroughly. And that is something that will come some months down the road. But as far as this indicator package is concerned, I really hope that you find it useful and helpful in your trading. And I wish you success. And I thank you for your support. Thanks again. Take care, everyone.